Chapter 945. Under Yi Tianyun's guidance, everyone was crazily destroying the formation eyes. Because most of them were not divine inscriber, it was more difficult to destroy them. It took a long time to destroy one. Those who had a bit of understanding, after knowing the formation eyes, would find it easier to destroy them. The last one. Yi Tianyun's eyes flickered. The formation eye in front of him was the last one. There were many formation eyes in the god-killing pagoda, but most of them were destroyed. Only the last one was left. Everyone wiped their sweat. Destroying so many formation eyes in a row would consume a lot of energy. Even if they knew the formation eyes, it would take a long time to destroy them. However, they were all very proactive. No one dared not to be proactive. It was not only because they were angry at the god-killing pagoda, but also because they were afraid of Yi Tianyun. It was better to listen to his orders. Rumble, with a loud sound, the entire god-killing pagoda shook. Following that, the god-killing array under their feet started to collapse, and everyone was sent flying. What appeared in front of them was an incomparably huge pit. Following that, a dense resentment surged up from below, accompanied by a dense baleful aura. It almost surged up from below, scaring many people into running away. When this baleful aura dissipated a little, everyone looked down into the pit, and their expressions changed. There were countless skeletons at the bottom of the pit, and there were also many fresh corpses. These fresh corpses were undoubtedly killed. After being swallowed by the god-killing array, they appeared below. So many corpses. Yi Tianyun looked at the countless corpses in the pit. This did not surprise him. So much baleful aura surged up from the bottom. Without so many corpses, it was impossible for so much baleful aura to appear. If it was before, he would not have felt anything. After all, it was normal for people to die in this kind of arena. They would all be sucked into the pit to create baleful aura. Now that he knew it was to resurrect those god-killing divine generals, it was a different story. Deliberately attracting groups of people here was to create more baleful aura, so that the divine generals could be resurrected. It had to be said that this was really a big move. Who knew how many people had died for this? Xiaoqin looked at the corpses below. They were all star venerates and above. One had to know that in the Fanyu, a star venerate could be considered a super expert. Here, they were like cabbages, piled up like cabbages. This was the difference in levels. Those who could be called gods in the mortal world could only be cannon fodder here. Burn! Yi Tianyun's eyes turned cold, and he quickly threw out flames to burn the corpses. Very quickly, the place was engulfed in flames, and the corpses were burnt to ashes. When the others saw the scene below, they all felt their blood run cold. They all knew that a lot of people died in the god-slaying pagoda, but it seemed like the number of people who died was truly too much, at least over 10,000. Over the years, too many people had died here. If Azura finds out about this, I'll probably be in big trouble. Yi Tianyun looked at the burning corpses, and the fact that the killing god pagoda was gradually collapsing. Killing God had painstakingly built this place, yet it was destroyed by him, and so many of his god generals had been killed. Yi Tianyun reckoned that Yi Tianyun would be so angry that he would vomit blood. He will probably chase you to the end of the world. Nian Xiaoyu smiled. The killing god pagoda has existed for so many years, and many people wanted to move it away, but no one thought of destroying it. Now, you actually destroyed the killing god pagoda the moment you arrived. But this is also good, it is the same as getting rid of a scourge. Who would have thought that everything was a scheme? When she said to the end, Nian Xiaoyu's expression turned cold. Luckily, she couldn't take it back then, otherwise, she would have been like those people before, turned into Azura's tools. Chase me? I am not afraid of that. Moreover, who would be able to recognize us now? Yi Tianyun smiled. They were all wearing masks, hiding their identities, and no one knew of their existence. That's true, but if someone else exposed their identity, they might have been chased by Azura. Nian Xiu looked at the Lord of Heaven at the side, and shook her head. The name of Azura causes people to tremble in fear. I wonder where he is now. I think that Azura isn't dead yet. Yes, he is definitely not dead. Yi Tianyun's eyes flashed. If they were dead, it would be difficult for these god generals to resurrect. Although he didn't know how these god generals died, there must be some conspiracy behind it. But it has nothing to do with him, anyway. Destroying the Killing God Pagoda is the end, the rest doesn't matter. Successfully completed side quest, Kill Killing Soul God General, Destroy Killing God Pagoda, Reward 100 billion EXP, 5 million Crazy Point, 5 million Proficiency, 5 million SPs. At this time, the side quest was finally completed, and he got a considerable amount of EXP. But compared to the EXP he needed to level up now, it was not enough, not even a fraction. Received Special Divine Realm Quest Exterminate Azura. Reward, 100 trillion EXP, 100 million Crazy Points, 50 million Proficiency Points, 50 million SPS, and 3,000 Prestige Points. At the same time, you will get the special title, Azura. Quest that affects the structure of the second-grade divine realm can affect the direction of your own forces. Choose to proceed. The special divine realm quest that popped up made him stunned. He wanted to say that it has nothing to do with him, but now a new special quest popped up. Either choose to do it, or choose to ignore it, it's up to him. Forget it, if I meet him one day, then I will just kill him. Yi Tianyun has made up his mind. Anyway, if it's on the way, then he will kill that guy. If it's not on the way, then there's no other way. He doesn't know where the killing god is, especially when he saw the reward. It is tempting, the other party must be a very strong existence. He definitely can't provoke this killing god now, plus the situation of the later part of the mission, affecting the second-grade divine realm. He is now only in the first-grade divine realm, and the second-grade divine realm is still far away, which undoubtedly proves that the strength of this killing god is absolutely amazing. Friend, thank you for your help. If there is no problem, we will leave now. At this time, someone came to say goodbye to him. In fact, they want to see how Yi Tianyun's attitude is, so as not to create hostility or something. They don't want Yi Tianyun to sneak attack them from behind when they are ready to leave. Yi Tianyun's elusive figure is too scary. If you want to leave, then leave. What does it have to do with me? Yi Tianyun looked at them indifferently and said, I am not a homicidal maniac, I only kill those who harm me, are you? Of course, we are not. If you have time, you are welcome to visit our divine realm. Chapter 946. This person is so powerful. Is he going to participate in the battle of the divine realm? No way. Even the Lord of Heaven was killed. Are you sure his cultivation is below the Lord of Earth? That's not possible. But he went to the killing god matrix. Did you forget that he is a divine carver? He can even find such a complicated matrix. It shouldn't be a problem for him to go in with a stronger cultivation, right? That makes sense. If such a monster can participate in the battle of the divine realm, we won't stand a chance. When they left, the teams were discussing. This time, they suffered heavy losses. It would be good if they could survive, let alone get any benefits. Compared to this, they were more interested in which divine realm Yi Tianyun was from. But no matter how they looked, they couldn't tell which divine realm he was from. There was no obvious characteristic power. Instead, they saw a very evil power. They couldn't tell. They are running away as if they are hiding from the plague. It seems that you scared them. Nian Xiu couldn't help but laugh when she saw them running away. I can't help it. They are timid. I am not a killer. Yi Tianyun shrugged helplessly. Okay, we can go back now. From today onwards, the Killing God Tower will disappear completely. Nian Xiu shook her head and said, for a first-grade divine realm, it is equivalent to losing an excellent place to cultivate. Of course, it is more to get rid of a scourge. These killing god generals stay here to hunt and kill. I don't know what they are plotting. I am not sure about that. We should leave quickly. They have sent a message. I guess someone will come to investigate soon. Yi Tianyun glanced around. Those people shouldn't come so soon. Yes, I have the same intention. We must not bring trouble to the heavenly mandate divine realm. At least not now. Nian Xiu took out the spirit ship and quickly left with Yi Tianyun. Soon, the place was empty. No one dared to come close. A few days after everyone left, a hole was torn in the void, and a figure walked out. His entire body was enveloped in killing intent, and even his face could not be seen clearly. A berserk aura was released in all directions. If someone with a lower cultivation were to stand beside it, they would probably go berserk immediately. The god-slaying pagoda was destroyed, and the 7 god generals all died here. The man frowned, but there was no sadness in his eyes. After inspecting the area, he waved his hand, causing a beam of light to cover the area. Very soon, a scene appeared in front of him. It was the scene of the previous battle, and now it was presented before his eyes. No matter where the details were, they were all displayed before his eyes. Giant rock race, giant eagle race. His eyes flashed with red light. It was impossible to tell whether he was happy or angry. When he saw Yi Tianyun easily kill everyone, his eyes narrowed into thin lines as if he was carefully observing Yi Tianyun's situation. His strength is astonishing, his speed is fast enough, and his explosive power is astonishing. Just what divine realm is this? He guessed. Strange, there are no special characteristics. Could it be the ancient heaven race? No, it doesn't look like the ancient heaven race. Just what kind of race is it? And what kind of power is it? He really couldn't find any clues. This scene was just to observe the situation. He couldn't feel the aura of the battle, so he couldn't tell. At this time, 2 spirit ships flew over from the side. Many people came out of the spirit ships, and what they saw was the collapse of the god-slaying pagoda. What's going on? The god-slaying pagoda collapsed. They were all dumbfounded. They had come from other divine realms to cultivate, but they didn't expect to see the god-slaying pagoda collapse. Don't go over. That guy's entire body is filled with killing intent. Could he be an expert who has gone berserk? One of the Lord of Heaven felt a sense of danger. He immediately brought his disciple back to the spirit ship, wanting to quickly leave this place. However, it was too late. The mysterious man had already arrived in front of them. He smiled at them and said, "Since you've seen me, then stay behind." Boom! A red light flashed, and in the blink of an eye, the 2 spirit ships were engulfed. The sturdy lower-grade Samsara-level spirit ship was forcefully smashed into pieces. The cultivators inside were all sucked dry, turning into piles of ashes that scattered in the air. What a bunch of trash. It wasn't easy for my lord to spend so much effort to save them, but now they're dead. He shook his head and said in a deep voice, "I don't know who that brat is, but I definitely have to find him. It's very likely that he will become my lord's next body." The red light in his eyes flickered, but he couldn't find any clues. He could only tear open space and leave this place. Yi Tianyun and Nian Xiu were completely unaware of the situation here. Fortunately, they had left quickly. If they had stayed a few more days, they would have ended up like the cultivators who had just arrived, dying without a complete corpse. Yi Tianyun and Nian Xiu quickly returned to the heavenly mandate divine realm. Nian Xiu was very satisfied with this trip. She was full of confidence in Yi Tianyun. As long as he participated in the divine realm's ascension battle, he would definitely be able to fight his way into the top 10. There are still a few years before the divine realm's ascension battle. I don't know how you cultivate, but in the remaining time, you should consolidate your cultivation. If there's anything you need, just tell me. I will do my best to assist you. Nian Xiu had already taken off her mask. Her beautiful face was full of excitement, and her eyes were full of hope for Yi Tianyun. He was someone who could get a good result in the divine realm's ascension battle. How could she not be excited? Assist me with all your strength? Yi Tianyun thought for a while. It seemed that he didn't need any assistance. After thinking for a while, he smiled and said, "If only you could arrange some dangerous places for me, such as places with more demonic beasts." Nian Xiaoyu looked at him as if she had seen a ghost. He was indeed someone who liked to kill. How could others not be afraid? You really rely on fighting to improve your cultivation? Nian Xiaoyu looked him up and down, feeling a little speechless. Elder Nian, didn't I say it before? Yi Tianyun felt even more helpless. Alright, I have indeed seen people who continuously improve their cultivation through fighting. Their breakthrough speed is indeed not bad. Nian Xiaoyu thought for a while before saying, those places are too dangerous. Even the Lord of Heaven can't casually go there. The safer places probably won't be of much help to you. She frowned and thought for a while before saying, however, there is a place that is indeed more suitable for you to go. I have to tell the region lord about this. Sure. Yi Tianyun agreed without thinking. He just wanted to find a good place to cultivate now. His cultivation was not bad now, but he definitely wouldn't be arrogant. The Divine Realm's Ascension battle was definitely not a simple battle. Countless experts of the Divine Realm would gather together. There might be some extremely heaven-defying existences. This was because Nian Xiaoyu had said that with his current strength, he might be able to fight his way into the top 10. She didn't say first, but said that he might be able to fight his way into the top 10. Chapter 947. Yi Tianyun didn't stay in the training room for long. Soon, Nian Xiaoyu came back, looking excited. He didn't need to guess to know that there was no problem. Otherwise, she wouldn't be so excited. It has been approved. Prepare for a few days, and then I will take you to the core area of the Heavenly Mandate Divine Realm. Nian Xiaoyu said excitedly. The core area of the Heavenly Mandate Divine Realm? Yi Tianyun looked at her in confusion. Yes, the core area. Only many outstanding warriors can go there. Now, we have made an exception and applied for it for you, Nian Xiaoyu said. Elder Nian, did you tell the region lord about me in the God-slaying tower? Yi Tianyun asked. Yes, otherwise it would be impossible to apply for it, Nian Xiaoyu said in a deep voice. Yi Tianyun nodded. This was not out of his expectation. If he didn't show any ability, the region lord wouldn't have arranged these places for him. Without a certain amount of contribution or ability, it was impossible to open some special places. After all, those places required a lot of resources. Without contribution or ability, they were definitely not allowed to go. If anyone went there, the Heavenly Mandate Divine Realm couldn't afford it. But I didn't say that you could fight against the Lord of Heaven. I only said that your breakthrough speed is very fast. If you want to get a good result in the Battle of Heaven, you must quickly improve your cultivation. So, we made an exception and allowed it, Nian Xiaoyu said. I thought Elder Nian had already said it. Yi Tianyun smiled. He didn't think it was a big deal. Anyway, it wouldn't affect him. Some secrets should be kept for the time being. I can give the region lord a surprise. Nian Xiaoyu's beautiful eyes twinkled, and she became a bit playful. This made Yi Tianyun feel a bit funny. He didn't expect Nian Xiaoyu to have such an idea. It seems that Elder Nian has high hopes for me. Yi Tianyun shook his head. Yes. Nian Xiaoyu looked at him with burning eyes and said in a heavy tone, I won't hide it from you. Don't be fooled by the Heavenly Mandate Divine Realm's glamorous appearance. In fact, the Heavenly Mandate Divine Realm is gradually declining, and the resources in all aspects can't keep up. Therefore, we need to obtain good results in the Divine Realm Ascension battle, at least in the top 10. It's not just our God domain, it's the same for the other God domains. Without an excellent inheritance, there was no way to strengthen the power of the God domain. There are God realm experts eyeing us covetously from the side. If we continue to be weak, we'll definitely be swallowed up. Her tone was serious, and she was not joking. Yi Tianyun knew that she wasn't joking, otherwise he wouldn't have spent so much effort to nurture the core hall. These were all geniuses that would participate in the Divine Realm's Ascending Heavens War. Tianyun could imagine what he would get if he won: stronger martial arts, stronger weapons. In the vast divine territory, the strongest martial arts were only at the reincarnation level. What about martial arts above the reincarnation level? Of course, they didn't have a single one. They had to rely on the Divine Realm's Ascending Heavens War to obtain good results before they could strengthen themselves. If I participate in the Divine Realm's Ascending Heavens War in my current situation, I wonder what rank I can get. Tianyun inquired. If there are no accidents, you should have a high chance of getting into the top 10. Nian Xiyu thought for a moment and said, "It's undeniable that you possess the strength to fight against the Lord of Heaven. However, this Divine Realm's Ascending Heavens War is very different from other assessments. At the same time, there are many heaven-defying experts in the divine territory among the participants. They have an advantage that we don't have. To put it bluntly, they have an innate advantage. In terms of strength, they are much stronger than us. In addition, they have an even more valiant race strength, which is enough to withstand everything. The other god domains might rely on external forces or have their own special trump cards. Their cultivation might be above the 6th or 7th refinement, or even above the 7th or 8th refinement. To them, crushing Fan Yu's Lord of Heaven is as easy as flipping their palms. Especially the high-level Earth monarchs. Nian Xiyu looked at Tianyun and warned, "When you start to break through to the 4th refinement Earth monarch, I will protect you." After all, this is the true dividing line. Tianyun nodded. He already had some understanding of the Earth monarchs. From the 4th refinement Earth monarch onwards, one would have to accept the heavenly tribulation. The heavenly tribulation happened once every 1,000 years. No one could avoid it. No matter which corner or region one hid in, once the time was up, the heavenly tribulation would descend. At that time, one could break through if they succeeded. If they failed, they would die. If they couldn't wait, they could attract the heavenly tribulation in advance and continue to break through. Of course, there was a third option. That was to directly break through to the Lord of Heaven. In that case, there wouldn't be any time limit. From the 3rd refinement Earth monarch onwards, one could break through to the Lord of Heaven. But this kind of Lord of Heaven was undoubtedly the trashiest existence. Even the Lord of Heaven couldn't compare to many high-level Earth monarchs. If people knew that he broke through from the 3rd refinement Earth monarch onwards, he would only be mocked as a coward. After all, when breaking through from the 3rd refinement Earth monarch to the Lord of Heaven, one would also have to endure the heavenly tribulation. It was just that the difficulty of the heavenly tribulation was much lower. Out of 10, there would be around 5 that succeeded. The probability was still very high. As for breaking through to a higher level, not only would one have to endure the heavenly tribulation every 1,000 years, the difficulty was also extremely shocking. But once one broke through, the power that erupted after was astonishing. Especially when the 7th or 8th refinement Earth monarch broke through to the Lord of Heaven. That was an extremely terrifying existence that could definitely crush other Lord of Heaven. It was just that the danger was too great. 1,000 years might seem like a long time, but some of them didn't consolidate their cultivation much before they had to forcefully face the heavenly tribulation. As a result, they were directly finished and had nothing left. Hence, the further one went, the more terrifying the success rate was. 9th refinement Earth monarch was really too rare. 6th or 7th refinement could still be seen. 8th refinement and above were extremely rare. 9th refinement could be said to be 1 in 10,000. And this was based on the premise that one was an 8th refinement Earth monarch. Out of 10,000 people, it was already not bad if one 9th refinement Earth monarch appeared. It was enough to show how high the difficulty was. Tianyun's big gift bag reward could only be opened when one broke through to the 9th refinement Earth monarch. Otherwise, there was no way to open it at all. It was useless even if one broke through to the Lord of Heaven. Hence, when he found out about the situation in this aspect, he felt the pressure multiply. One had to endure the layers of heavenly tribulation. The further one went, the more monstrous it would be. The difficulty could be said to be monstrous. Breaking through to the fourth refinement Earth Monarch level. Yi Tianyun narrowed his eyes. The difficulty would definitely be great, but if it was the beginning, it should be relatively easy. If one couldn't even break through to the fourth refinement Earth Monarch level, then one would really have lived in vain. Chapter 948. After Nian Xiyu gave her instructions, she went to prepare and let Yi Tianyun rest here for a period of time. He had just returned from outside, so he had to rest for a while first. Most importantly, Nian Xiyu also had to clear the situation on the other side, hence she let Yi Tianyun rest for a few days. Yi Tianyun didn't need to rest at all. Previously, he didn't have any intense battles, so resting or not resting didn't make much difference. Looks like I can only wait for a while. Yi Tianyun stayed in the cultivation room, waiting for the results. He didn't know what the core cultivation ground was, but since Nian Xiyu was so supportive of it, it shouldn't be bad. As long as it wasn't as bad as the Killing God Pagoda, it was fine. The Killing God Pagoda was really bad. If he wasn't stronger, he would have definitely died there. After being possessed, his body would be taken over, and he would be at the mercy of the other party, taking over his position. Just thinking about it made him feel disgusted. Luckily, he was fine. As he continued to wait, there was a knock on the door. Gu Yurong. He didn't expect that it would be Gu Yurong looking for him. Without thinking much, he got up and walked outside. After pushing the door open, Gu Yurong's familiar face appeared in front of him. When the two of them looked at each other, Gu Yurong didn't dare to look at him. I didn't expect you to come. What's the matter? Yi Tianyun looked at her and smiled. Young Master Yi, I saw that your friend seems to be in some trouble. Gu Yurong was a little embarrassed. The main reason was that her personality was originally cold. Now that she took the initiative to talk to Yi Tianyun, she was more or less embarrassed. My friend? Yi Tianyun thought for a moment and immediately thought of a person. That was the cultivator who just came to God Domain. Could it be that Lei Zhengyu? Yes, that young Master Lei is fighting with someone on Man-Flower Star. He can't hold on much longer. If this continues, I'm afraid he will die there. Gu Yurong said. What? A duel? Yi Tianyun furrowed his brows. He knew that Lei Zhengyu was someone who kept a low profile. Someone must have provoked him for him to fight in the arena. Yes, I've persisted in fighting in the arena for a few days and fought with many cultivators. I heard that he was going to fight with those cultivators who looked down on the human race. The other party fought one after another, and his injuries were quite serious. Gu Yurong said. As expected. Yi Tianyun's gaze turned cold. It was no different from what he had expected. Lei Zhengyu wouldn't look for trouble for no reason. Someone must have provoked him. Shortly after, he smiled at Gu Yurong and said, Thank you very much. I'll go out now. In the next moment, he immediately rushed forward, not staying here for even half a second. The situation must have been very urgent, because he saw that Gu Yurong was running to find him. When she came to him, her breath was a bit messy, which meant that she had rushed all the way here. Gu Yurong looked at his back as he left, and there was some worry in her eyes. Young Master Yi, will he be okay? She thought about it and followed him. She had always received help from Yi Tianyun, so naturally, she wouldn't just leave him be. Yi Tianyun quickly went to Man-Flower Star through the teleportation matrix. Sky Emperor Star was a rather special planet in the Heavenly Mandate Divine Realm. It was often a place of entertainment for many cultivators who had completed their tasks, and there were all kinds of entertainment facilities on it. For example, brothels or various restaurants, which were basically places where people indulged in debauchery. However, there was a huge duel here. It was quite exciting to drink and watch the battles between the cultivators on the duel. However, there was a big problem up there, and that was that life and death were not allowed. Fists and legs had no eyes, and if one died, it would have nothing to do with the other party. Fortunately, one could surrender. If they surrendered, they definitely couldn't attack. Otherwise, they would be punished by the referee. When he arrived at Man-Flower Star, he immediately smelled a strong wine fragrance. There were restaurants all around, and each restaurant was more luxurious than the one before. It was very easy to spend money here. One just needed to use some star stones. Contribution points could be exchanged for star stones, so after completing their tasks, they could come here to rest. Little brother, do you want to come over and have some fun here? A beautiful woman at the side tossed out a silk handkerchief and gently shook it in his direction. The fragrance spread out, looking very tempting. There were many special services in the restaurants here. The beautiful women all had low cultivations, but there were also some with high cultivations, reaching the Star Lord level. There was nothing wrong with doing this kind of business. Where there was demand, there would be a market. Because of their cultivations, none of them were ugly, and they were all beautiful. However, Yi Tianyun didn't even bother to look at them. He focused his gaze and looked ahead. He immediately saw a huge duel in the distance, which was divided into several sections. This meant that several duels could be held at the same time. One of the duels was very lively. Several people surrounded the duel, shouting, "Beat that brat to death! Beat that human to death! He doesn't know what's good for him. To think that he dares to provoke us. He is seeking death." These voices spread out in the surroundings, truly ear-splitting. On the other hand, there was basically no one supporting Lei Zhenyu. Yi Tianyun narrowed his eyes and stomped on the ground. Boom! Then, he vanished from where he stood. The woman at the side waved her silk handkerchief in boredom. She said resentfully, "These stinky men. They get so excited when they see people fighting, but they are not interested in us at all." They all returned in boredom. Little did they know that Yi Tianyun was not interested in these pink skulls at all. In the blink of an eye, Xiaoqun arrived at the edge of the duel and saw the familiar figure of Lei Zhenyu fighting with a cultivator. The two were locked in a stalemate. It was clear that Lei Zhenyu was being suppressed. The main reason was that he was injured, while his opponent was not injured. Even if their cultivation levels were similar, Lei Zhenyu would definitely be defeated due to his lack of stamina. At this moment, Xiaoqun realized that there were many human cultivators who supported him. However, their voices were much weaker than the other parties. It was as if they had no confidence. All of them were cowering. Even if they won, they would look like thieving thieves. On the other hand, even if the other races lost, they were full of vigor, as if they had won. What's going on? Yi Tianyun came to the human side and asked his fellow cultivator beside him. When that person saw that Yi Tianyun was one of them, he said helplessly, "What could be going on?" "That brat up there is defending a fellow cultivator called Yi Tianyun, so he started fighting with others." Defending a fellow cultivator? Yi Tianyun was stunned. He did not expect that they were fighting because of him. He really did not expect this. Yes, someone said that Yi Tianyun entered through the back door, or that he is not a human cultivator, but actually from another race. In short, he did not recognize Brother Yi's achievements, or he did not think that he was a human. He thought that it was impossible for a human to achieve such achievements. The cultivator said helplessly, then he retorted that Brother Yi is a human, and that he did not enter through the back door, nor did he use any tricks. Then they started fighting. That brother is really tough. He has defeated several of them, but the other party still did not change his words. Chapter 949. Ah, ah, ah. Lei Zhenyu roared angrily in the arena. The lightning in his body flickered and exploded. His strength was several levels higher than before. He, who was originally at a disadvantage, suddenly gained the upper hand. He crazily suppressed his opponent, and the arena was filled with lightning. Boom! After his opponent was sent flying by a punch, he spat out a mouthful of blood and fell heavily from the sky. Lei Zhengyu roared and continued to charge forward. When he was ready to beat his opponent again, his opponent hurriedly shouted, "I admit defeat, I admit defeat." After admitting defeat, a judge immediately stood up and signaled for them to stop fighting. "You lost. Quickly apologize to my friend." Lei Zhengyu panted and glared at his opponent in front of him. He spat out a lot of blood, which splattered on the ground. It seemed that his condition was quite serious. If this continued, he would definitely die in the arena. His opponent could surrender, but he couldn't. "Lost? We didn't lose. You still have many of us to defeat. How can you say we lost?" Their opponent was a large group of people. Perhaps they didn't know each other, but facing a human, they immediately united and refused to admit defeat. If they wanted to admit defeat, they would have done so long ago. They wouldn't be so shameless as to send people up. To Yi Tianyun, winning the tag battle was a loser. Is that so? Come on then. Come on. Lei Zhengyu's body swayed, and he almost fell. However, he stood firm and looked at them with a fierce gaze. He would never admit defeat. "No matter how many of you come, I will defeat you until you admit defeat." He was panting, but his stubborn heart supported him. This kid is really tough. I didn't expect him to be so good. They didn't admit defeat, but they were still shocked. Lei Zhengyu had defeated several of them in a row. Just this result alone was shocking. However, they didn't admit defeat. They wouldn't admit defeat no matter what. Find a stronger opponent and beat him to death. We will definitely win this time. If not for the cultivation limit, I would go down and beat him up. They were very displeased to see Lei Zhengyu like this. If not for the fact that the dueling ring did not allow the difference in cultivation, the dueling ring would only allow the difference of 1 or 2 cultivation realms at most. If the difference was too great, not only would it not be worth watching, but it would also result in a crushing defeat. Yi Tianyun, who was watching from below, narrowed his eyes slightly. He turned to his fellow tribesmen and asked, "None of you intend to go up and help?" "Help?" A look of shock appeared in the eyes of this fellow clansman. "We're so much weaker than them. How can we help? And even if we defeat one of them, they'll bring more powerful helpers later on. We'll still lose." The surrounding people all shook their heads. Their thoughts were the same. None of them wanted to stand out. If he stood out, he would be beaten to death. In addition, there were so many people here suppressing him. It would be hard for him to survive in the future. They could only choose to silently endure the humiliation. In this state, it was akin to dragging out an ignoble existence, living for as long as they could. If they forcefully stood out, the only result that awaited them would be getting into trouble. They would be in a troublesome situation, so how could they cultivate in peace? Yes, who doesn't want to stand out? But the other party is so much stronger than us. In the end, we were suppressed to death. There was a situation like this before. A group of people were suppressed by force, but in the end, they were still suppressed, causing them to leave the heavenly mandate divine realm and wander outside. I remember that incident. It was very big. There were a few very powerful people who led a group of people to kill everywhere. When all the human clans thought that they could rise, a super genius from the other side came and defeated everyone. After that, they sank into depression, and their status was getting worse day by day. They all shook their heads. As long as this divine realm was not controlled by the human clans, their status could not be higher than that of other clans. Or it could be said that they had absolute power. Otherwise, they could not support it at all. If someone were to lead you, would you stand up and fight with them? Yi Tianyun looked at them and asked. Forget it, there's no hope. Yes, there's no hope. Don't struggle in vain, little brother, the idea is good, but the reality is cruel. They all chose to shake their heads. Even if someone were to lead them, they did not want to do such a thing. They had failed so many times that they were so desperate that they could not stand up. Yi Tianyun saw despair and pessimism in their eyes. There was no passion to speak of, and there was no motivation at all. How could they improve their status like this? No wonder their status has always been lower than others, and they have always chosen to live. What status can they have? Yi Tianyun shook his head and jumped forward. He immediately landed beside Lei Zhengyu and reached out to pat him on the shoulder. Lei Zhengyu turned his head and looked over. When he found it was Yi Tianyun, he was delighted. Brother Yi. Thank you for your hard work. Leave it to me. Yi Tianyun took out an elixir and handed it to him. Take this elixir, and then it's my turn to perform. I'll thank you properly for helping me protect my reputation before. Lei Zhengyu took the elixir without hesitation and stuffed it into his mouth. He grinned and said, "It's no big deal. I just can't stand them. No matter what, we must maintain our dignity. We must not lose our dignity." Who are you? What are you doing here? Are you here to fight? When the cultivator at the side saw Yi Tianyun going up to help, he frowned and said, "Do you humans think you can fight against us? So what if I am?" Yi Tianyun looked at him and said indifferently, "There is no problem. In that case, you are willing to help him." The other party looked at him and said disdainfully, "So what if I am?" Yi Tianyun repeated. Such an indifferent tone immediately made them feel extremely displeased. A cold look flashed across their eyes. "All right then, I will let you participate in the battle on my behalf, in case you say that we are bullying him with numbers." The other party said. "Aren't you bullying him with numbers?" Yi Tianyun found their words very funny. He glanced at the people present and said coldly, "Since that's the case, I will give you a chance to bully him with numbers. Whether it's one or a group, you are very welcome to compete with me." Yi Tianyun had just come up, but he already said such big words. This caused many people to exclaim in surprise. Especially the cultivators who talked to Yi Tianyun just now. When they saw him go up and say such words, they were all stunned. Was he trying to put on an act and provoke everyone present? The others were immediately infuriated. They all glared at him, their faces alternating between green and red. There is no need to bully him with numbers. I will come down and fight with you in this round. Following that, a young man descended from above. His cultivation was similar to Yi Tianyun's, a second refinement earth monarch. Yi Tianyun had just come up and released a bit of his aura to let them know what level he was at. The people they sent up naturally couldn't exceed this level of cultivation. Moreover, this level of cultivation wasn't considered low. Yi Tianyun looked him up and down and said with a faint smile, "Don't you like to bully him with numbers? Why don't you continue? I very much welcome you to gang up on me. It's not that I like to torture myself, I just want to satisfy your wishes. All of you came to play a tag battle and won't admit it even after losing. What a joke. Is this the so-called arrogance of your race? To me, those who have always bullied the weaker races to show off their superiority are actually characters with low self-esteem. Only by suppressing other races can they obtain a sense of accomplishment. This kind of person is really trash. A true expert wouldn't care about this at all. Instead, all of you are like frogs at the bottom of a well. What a joke." Chapter 950. Yi Tianyun's words were full of thorns, causing their faces to turn green and pale, making them extremely embarrassed. Many of the others who remained neutral were also extremely disdainful of their behavior. Previously, they had agreed that it would be a normal match, and the loser would apologize. Who knew that they would start a tag team battle, and Lei Zhengyu almost couldn't hold on. Winner takes all. What else is there to say? Do we still need to talk about fairness on the battlefield? What an idiot. Win against us first. The cultivators standing opposite Yi Tianyun glared at him, not the slightest bit self-conscious. Even now, they didn't think that they had done anything wrong. Ha, winner takes all. Then let's talk with our strength. Yi Tianyun looked at them coldly and said, "I'll give you one last chance. Choose to fight as a group, or fight one by one. It's up to you, bullshit. I alone am enough to deal with you. The other party looked at him angrily and shouted, come on, don't be so long-winded. If you want to fight, then fight. I will make you humans unable to say a word. Just like what happened in the past, all resistance is futile. If you want to stay here, you'll have to obediently stay here and bow down to us. Boom. A figure rushed over and kicked him away. His whole body caved in, but he showed mercy and didn't kill him. Instead, all the bones in his body were broken. Following that, this lump of soft mud fell to the ground, and all the blood in his body splattered in all directions. It was a tragic sight, but he still had one breath left and didn't die. This was done on purpose by Yi Tianyun. Killing him was too satisfying, and he wanted to teach these pigs a lesson. Even with good medicinal pills to treat him, he wouldn't be able to get off the bed without a few years, or even decades. Next. Yi Tianyun looked at them coldly and said, no matter how high your cultivation is, you can come down. Even if you are the Lord of Heaven, you can come down and challenge me. Domineering, absolutely domineering. With a single kick, he had turned a second refinement Earth monarch into a meat patty. Moreover, he had even held back. If it were someone more violent, he would have been kicked to death. But he didn't do so. Instead, he made them remember for the rest of their lives, knowing that there was someone who would forever be their nightmare. Everyone was dumbfounded. With just one move, the opponent was seriously injured. Wasn't this strength too domineering? Too powerful. I didn't expect him to become so powerful in such a short period of time. Lei Zhengyu, who had retreated off the stage, was extremely excited. He shouted to the people beside him, what's wrong with you guys? Aren't you going to cheer for them? Beat those fellows into a sorry state. Let them look down on us humans. Seeing Lei Zhengyu's excitement, the others looked at each other with fear in their eyes. Not to mention cheering, they didn't even dare to cheer. They could only shout it out in their hearts and did not dare to shout it out from their mouths. This was because they knew that if they shouted, the other party would definitely come after them. At that time, they would have to bear the consequences. When Lei Zhengyu saw that they weren't very excited, he felt very disappointed. It seemed like their hearts were already dead, and they didn't have any hope. To put it bluntly, their servility was too strong, to the extent that they didn't dare to shout out. It was truly a kind of sorrow. Why? You guys aren't willing to come down and challenge me? Don't you like to take turns fighting? Come down. That passerby just now was defeated by me. Now, it's the next person's turn. Yi Tianyun glanced at them, indicating for them to continue. I'll do it. At this moment, a third refinement Earth monarch jumped down and glared at him, saying, this time, I'll take revenge for Brother Fan. You don't even know his name. Boom. Yi Tianyun's figure flashed, and he kicked out fiercely. This third refinement Earth monarch's outcome was immediately the same as that Brother Fan, turning into a pile of meat paste. He didn't die, but he had to be treated in order to survive. Otherwise, only death awaited him. Next, this passerby has lost. Yi Tianyun looked at the cultivators in front of him indifferently. Originally, they had disdainful expressions, but now, all of them had expressions of horror. When they saw how violent he was, their hearts started to tremble. He had merely defeated two, and they immediately didn't dare to come down. Lei Zhengyu wasn't violent enough, and the other party didn't suffer too many losses. Therefore, they dared to continue. Yi Tianyun was much more violent. He settled it with a single kick. How could they not be frightened? What's wrong? Is no one coming down? All a bunch of cowards. Previously, you said that the winner is the king, and the loser is the thief. Now, you are the bandits, a bunch of trash. Just based on trash like you dare to challenge us humans? Yi Tianyun sneered. He wasn't afraid of them at all. Me, I'll do it. A fourth refinement Earth Monarch took out a middle-grade reincarnation rank weapon, mustered up his courage, and jumped onto the stage. He was fully prepared to completely crush Yi Tianyun. Just as he finished his preparations, he saw a flash of light. With a boom, he immediately lost consciousness and turned into a pile of meat paste just like the previous two. This passerby see has lost. Next! Yi Tianyun shouted very loudly. He had a feeling of rushing into the mountains and rivers, and his roar soared into the clouds. Such a roar caused those disheartened humans to feel excited. It was as though they saw a hope standing in front of them, guiding them to continue forward. Next! What's wrong with you guys? Didn't you want to continue fighting? Next, a bunch of trash. Lei Zhengyu roared from below, indicating for the other party to continue sending people down instead of standing foolishly at the side. Right, right. Next, next. Continue sending people, a bunch of trash. Next, next. Good job, beat them into a sorry state. At this time, all of them mustered up their courage and roared out the dissatisfaction in their hearts. The entire area was instantly filled with their roars. They completely released the pressure in their hearts, and their voices resounded throughout the heaven and earth. When Yi Tianyun saw that the situation here was being led by him, he immediately felt gratified. This was the essence of what should be done. Even if the result was a loss, they shouldn't choose to give up. Instead, they should stand firm and continue to charge forward. What a big tone. You think we have no one? At this time, a handsome youth floated over from the side. He held a fan in his hand and looked down at Yi Tianyun from the sky. Lu Baisheng is here. The number one genius of the inner hall is here. At this time, they immediately saw hope. They were originally suppressed, but now that Lu Baisheng was here, they immediately became excited. This was the number one genius of the inner hall. His cultivation had reached the 6th refinement of the Earth Monarch rank. He belonged to the standard of the number one genius of the inner hall. It was rumored that he was ready to join the core hall. This was enough to prove how strong he was. Some people said that he could reach the 8th refinement of the Earth Monarch rank. If he reached the 8th refinement of the Earth Monarch rank and charged towards the Lord of Heaven, then he might become an elder-level mission in the future. This was truly admirable. When he appeared, those people immediately shut up. Their auras sank, and they didn't dare to shout anymore. All of them seemed to have wilted. Chapter 951. Lu Baisheng's elegant demeanor immediately attracted a round of cheers, filled with hope for his arrival. Those who were previously listless were now extremely excited. Finally, there was an expert who stood up for them. Senior brother Lu, defeat this brat and teach him a lesson. Yes. He's too arrogant. He thinks this is the human race's world. Beat him, beat him, beat him to death. All of them cheered. They were no longer as listless and silent as before. In contrast, the atmosphere on Lei Zhengyu's side quickly cooled. All of them kept quiet out of fear, not daring to utter a single word. It was a world of difference from before. What's wrong with you guys? Isn't he just an inner hall genius? Do you think we'll lose? Lei Zhengyu was very dissatisfied with the surrounding people's performance. They had been a little excited before, but now, all of them were listless. Wasn't this showing that the other party's prestige was too great? This is Lu Baisheng, the number one in the inner hall. Not to mention the human race, even those powerful races will be trampled underfoot. If we continue to make noise, we'll definitely be targeted. That's right, this is Lu Baisheng. We can't win, we'll lose. Not only will we lose, we'll also be humiliated. All of them shook their heads, completely not daring to continue shouting. All of them shrank back like turtles. How can you be like this? Are you sure you'll lose? No matter what, you have to try, right? Lei Zhengyu looked at them and said angrily, I believe you are all experts in Fan Yu. Why are you all acting like turtles here? Is it because of this that you don't dare to resist? Where's your pride from before? Where's your fighting spirit from before? Under Lei Zhengyu's stern voice, a light emerged in the depths of their eyes. Lei Zhengyu's words made them recall the situation back then. They were all top existences in Fanyu, climbing up step by step from the bottom to reach the divine realm with great difficulty. In the end, they discovered that they were just ants, far inferior to others, and were easily abused. After being oppressed for so long, they had completely lost their previous fighting spirit. In the eyes of Fanyu, they could be said to be geniuses among geniuses, but here, they were not even comparable to cabbages. It was really a kind of tragedy. Their eyes were filled with bewilderment. Lei Zhengyu's words still didn't inspire their fighting spirit. Everything was suppressed by the other party's aura, and they couldn't summon the slightest will to resist. Yi Tianyun glanced at the situation below and did not say anything. Instead, he looked at Lu Baixing and said indifferently, "The number one genius of the inner hall? If you want to fight, hurry up and come down. Don't just stand there like an idiot." "How dare you call me an idiot?" Cold light flickered in Lu Baixing's eyes. He had always been high and mighty, and no one dared to disrespect him in the slightest. Now that someone had insulted him, he was instantly infuriated. Humans really are humans. How despicable. They have no manners at all. No wonder you've always been at the bottom. You have only yourselves to blame. Manners are for humans. You're just a beast. Yi Tianyun said indifferently, "In my opinion, you just rely on your little bit of ability to trample on those who are weaker than you. That's even more despicable. Especially when you lose, you don't even admit that you lost. You don't even have the most basic integrity. How can you stand in this world?" His words immediately angered many people, but they couldn't refute him. When Lei Zhenyu fought in the arena, he had indeed said such things, but they hadn't fulfilled their promise. Good. You really have guts. Then let me test you out. Let's see how strong you are. Lu Baixing landed on the arena. Just as he steadied himself, a stream of air swirled around him. It looked ordinary, but in fact, he had already sealed off his surroundings. No matter which direction the attack came from, he could quickly react. It could be said that every step was not taken recklessly. Lu Baixing wasn't the kind of person who would easily lose his rationality. Yi Tianyun had easily defeated two people. Even he didn't dare to be careless. Just this move alone made Lu Baixing's supporters behind him cheer. This kid is dead for sure. I believe that under senior brother Lu's attack, he won't last more than 10 moves. At most 5 moves, and that kid will be defeated. They were so confident that the title of the number one genius in the inner hall wasn't just for show. Lu Baixing could be said to have defeated countless strong cultivators in the inner hall before finally sitting in the number one position. This was not a random title. The eyes of the human clan dimmed, and they all shook their heads. This halo was too dazzling. On the other hand, what halo could this side have? He was just a nobody. Are you ready? Don't say that I didn't give you a chance. I'll let you make 3 moves first, swish. A cold light pierced through, and Lu Baixing's pupils shrank. He quickly waved the fan in his hand and swept it forward. In an instant, the fan turned into hundreds of fans, forming a thick wall in front of him. It looked indestructible, like an impenetrable fortress. Boom! A violent force came crashing down, and the hundreds of fans were blown up by a punch. In the blink of an eye, they turned into a pile of powder. Lu Baixing's heart sank, and then he saw a fist pass through the shield he released and hit his chest. Boom! He felt his chest sink, and then an intense pain came along with it. It was like a wave that charged up his body, and because the pain was too intense, he fainted in less than half a breath of time and lost all consciousness. Bang! Lu Baixing fell from the sky, and a large part of his chest caved in. The rest of his body was the same. He felt that the power of this punch spread out, causing his whole body to shatter. It was still just a punch, and the number one genius in the inner hall was defeated. Number one genius in the inner hall. Yi Tianyun shook his head and said indifferently, just so. Can't even withstand a blow. He was so arrogant. The other party wanted to step on him, so he would step on them ruthlessly and let them feel this feeling. The whole place was in complete silence. Everyone stared at Lu Baisheng, who was lying on the ground, and doubted if their eyes were playing tricks on them. The number one genius in the inner hall was defeated in a single punch when he was prepared. To have such a standard, could it be that the other party had already reached the level of the Lord of Heaven? But that wasn't right. When he first came up, he felt that the other party had the cultivation of a third refinement Earth monarch. Now, he could defeat the other party with a single punch, and he was 3 levels above him. It was truly unbelievable. Too powerful. The number one genius in the inner hall was defeated. Lei Zhengyu looked at them excitedly and said, "Look, what are you afraid of?" Not to mention the number one genius in the inner hall, even the number one genius in the core hall would be defeated. Chapter 952. Yi Tianyun's victory immediately gave them hope. It's not that they want to rely on Yi Tianyun, but it let them see the hope of resistance, proving that humans also have potential, and not always be suppressed by bloodline. Really, the first genius of the inner hall was easily defeated. It seems that our human race still has potential, we can still beat them down. Yes. If we admit defeat, then we will lose everything. What are you afraid of? Even if we lose, we can do it again, we can unite together, I don't believe that we can't beat them. One by one, their confidence came back, and their fighting spirit rose crazily, sweeping away the confusion in their hearts. They just have no confidence in themselves, thinking that they will never surpass others, that's why they have been depressed. It's like no matter how hard they try, they can't catch up with others, and in the end, they will only completely lose their fighting spirit. They found this feeling from Yi Tianyun, and it made them excited. Humans also have unlimited potential. When Yi Tianyun noticed the situation here, he couldn't help but smile. This is the fighting spirit they should have. Ding! Successfully restored the fighting spirit of more than 100 people, gaining 10 billion EXP, 1 million crazy point, 1 million mastery points, 500 karma. There is also a small task, interesting. Yi Tianyun smiled, it's quite interesting, he just doesn't want to let the human race decline, it's not a good thing for him. Everyone is so depressed, in the future, if people from the 3 realms come, won't they also be affected? Change starts from now, he can't stay stagnant. One side is cheering, the other side is depressed. What's wrong with you, don't you want to continue to duel with me, just come down. Yi Tianyun glanced at the opposite side of the crowd, motioning them to continue to duel with him. They looked at each other and saw a bit of fear in each other's eyes. They won't die, but they will definitely be crippled. They don't want to lie in bed for decades, even if they recover, they will fall behind their peers by a lot. A few decades is not a long time, but it is difficult to catch up in the divine realm, it takes a lot of effort. Junior brother Lu. At this time, a white figure floated down to Lu Baisheng's side, picked him up, and quickly fed him an elixir. Then, he turned to look at Yi Tianyun and said angrily, "Did you hurt junior brother Lu?" Yi Tianyun looked over and discovered that the person who came down was actually a stunning beauty. Her eyes were red, and it was obvious that she was in love with Lu Baisheng. Now that Lu Baisheng had been beaten into a pig's head, how could he not be angry? Yes, it's Feng Suiqiu from the Core Palace. She seems to like Lu Baisheng, that's right. He seems to have just returned from training recently, and it seems like his cultivation is about to break through to the 7th refinement earthly monarch realm. He's one of the best in the core hall. His overall strength is much stronger than Lu Baisheng's. Looks like I have a chance to defeat that kid. So it's senior sister Feng Suiqiu. This is incredible. Ha ha ha, this kid is dead for sure. He injured Lu Baisheng, so big sister Feng Suiqiu will definitely cripple him. This isn't the main point. The main point is that she's a disciple that Elder Nian thinks highly of. I heard that she has a high chance of being taken in as a personal disciple. Each and every one of them looked over at this side with schadenfreude, feeling that Yi Tianyun was definitely dead for sure this time. Although their cultivation was all at the 6th refinement earthly monarch realm, this was the level of the core hall. His overall strength definitely wouldn't be weak, and he was a lot stronger than Lu Baisheng. Especially when there was still a great reputation behind him. That was the disciple that Nian Xiyu thought highly of. A disciple that the future successor thought highly of, who dared to injure recklessly. If he was injured, wouldn't Nian Xiyu fight it out with him? The faces of Lei Zhengyu and the others changed. How could they not know a woman with such background? Especially the person that Nian Xiyu thought highly of, that was even more shocking. With such a strong background, even if Yi Tianyun was stronger than the other party, did he really dare to injure her? Yi Tianyun looked at this woman with a strong background and said indifferently, I injured him. What's the problem? Alright, as long as you admit that you injured him. Feng Suiqiu put down Lu Baisheng and handed him to the people beside her to take care of him. She stood up and looked at him coldly, saying, cripple both your legs, and I will spare your life. Quite arrogant. This is a normal arena competition. What qualifications do you have to give such a punishment? Yi Tianyun looked her up and down, especially when he heard that Nian Xiyu was taking care of her. It seemed that she had some background, and that was why she became arrogant. To put it bluntly, if Nian Xiyu and the others didn't think highly of him because of this matter, he would immediately choose to leave this place. With so many god regions, he didn't believe that no one would take him in. Qualifications? Feng Suiqiu looked him up and down and said with contempt, you are new, right? You don't even know my identity? A core hall disciple, and also Elder Nian's future personal disciple. I am more than enough. If you want to survive in the God region, you better do this obediently. Otherwise, you will be imprisoned in the depths of the prison and never be able to rise again. Her face was full of arrogance as if she was doted on by millions, and no one dared to touch her. Everyone nodded their heads and felt that what she said was reasonable. This identity was really hard. Is that so? What does this have to do with me? Yi Tianyun said indifferently, just because of this, I have to cripple my own legs and feet. I didn't think that there would be such an idiot in the core hall. If it was someone else, this might work, but it is useless against me. You. Feng Suiqiu's eyes were cold. She took out a white silk and jumped down from the arena. She landed firmly on the ground and glared at him, very good. Since it is like this, then I will test you and see how strong you are. Just as she finished speaking, Feng Suiqiu flung the white silk in her hand and whipped it towards him. A middle-grade reincarnation-level weapon, it represented that her background was indeed extraordinary. Yi Tianyun didn't even dodge. Facing the white silk that was whipping towards his head, he quickly reached out and grabbed it. With a peng sound, a cold aura spread out from his hand and instantly froze his arm. Feng Suiqiu's attack was not an ordinary attack, it was an attack filled with extreme cold. Therefore, when Feng Suiqiu saw Yi Tianyun grab her white silk, she couldn't help but laugh. What an idiot, you still dare to grab my attack with your bare hands. Your hand is about to be crippled. Everyone else thought the same way. Why did you have to pretend to be a big shot? You will directly be frozen and crippled. Just this little bit of ice, I still don't care. Yi Tianyun fiercely pulled the white silk towards him. The powerful force dragged Feng Suiqiu over, causing her to cry out in fear. In the blink of an eye, she was dragged in front of him. Feng Suiqiu was so scared that her beautiful face turned pale. Without waiting for her to react, Yi Tianyun slapped her. Pa! Feng Suiqiu was heavily slapped. Her entire body was sent flying and her face was slapped high. Chapter 953. Feng Suiqiu was sent flying by the slap. Her beautiful face was swollen, and a few of her teeth were knocked out. It was a horrible sight to behold. She was no longer a goddess. Her face was now swollen like a pig's head. He didn't hold back at all. He was merciful. Yi Tianyun didn't hit her too hard for Ciu's sake. Otherwise, she wouldn't be a core disciple. She would still be crippled like Lu Baisheng. The crowd was dumbfounded. What was the use of being a core disciple and Ciu's identity? Yi Tianyun still hit her, which made Lei Zhengyu clap his hands. She had nothing to do with him anyway. Brother Yi, you did a good job, but you are a bit too courageous. Lei Zhengyu couldn't help but give a thumbs up to Yi Tianyun. He thought it was amazing. He really didn't hesitate at all when he said he would fight. The other humans all gasped. Did he really not plan to stay in the heavenly mandate divine realm? She was Ciu's future disciple. Hitting her disciple was equivalent to slapping Ciu's face. How dare you hit me? Feng Suiqiu screamed like a cat whose tail was stepped on. She jumped up from the ground and covered her face. She glared at Yi Tianyun and shouted, "Do you know who I am? You ignorant human, stupid human. The lowest human in the divine realm. You are only fit to be a slave forever." Slap. Yi Tianyun slapped her again, causing her to retreat again and again. Say it again. Yi Tianyun said coldly. You dare to hit me again. I want you dead. You humans are worse than trash, slap. Yi Tianyun slapped her again and sneered, go on. You, slap. Go on. Yi Tianyun slapped Feng Suiqiu a few times in a row. Feng Suiqiu's face was disfigured. Her face was swollen like a pig's head. It was impossible to tell her original appearance. Apart from the lower half of his body which looked normal, his face was unrecognizable. Feng Suiqiu was beaten to the point that she couldn't speak. Her head was dizzy from the beating. Other than letting out whimpering sounds, she couldn't make any other sounds. You think I don't dare to hit a woman? Even if it's a woman, I still dare to hit her. Yi Tianyun turned his leg around and kicked Feng Suiqiu. Pang! Feng Suiqiu was kicked out and landed heavily on the ground. In the end, he was no different from Lu Baisheng. All the bones in his body were broken, and if he wanted to get out of bed, he would need to recuperate for at least a few years, or even decades. Killing them was indeed the most direct and brutal method, and he could even gain a lot of experience, but to him, it was too easy for these idiots. As for whether or not they would take revenge after a few decades, he was not the least bit afraid of these idiots taking revenge on him. At that time, he was afraid that they would not even have the qualifications to look up to him. Senior Sister Feng. A young girl rushed over and hugged Feng Suiqiu. When she saw her senior sister's appearance, she glared at Yi Tianyun and said, You are dead. How dare you beat senior sister Feng like this? She is the seated contestant of the Divine Realm's ascending battle. You will have to bear the wrath of Elder Nian. The cultivators on Lei Zhengyu's side trembled. They felt that they had really gone too far this time. If Elder Nian really pursued this matter, wouldn't they all be finished? It's over. If Elder Nian pursues this matter, he will be in trouble, indeed so. Even if his ability is not bad, he will not be able to deal with someone with a strong background. Don't worry, Brother Yi will be fine. He is so much stronger than the others, I don't believe that these elders are blind. That Feng Suiqiu's ability is not bad, but she was still defeated by Brother Yi. So on and so forth, Brother Yi's talent is much stronger than theirs. What is there to worry about? Lei Zhengyu was a little worried, but he felt that the heavenly mandate realm would not punish Yi Tianyun. If so, it would be a great loss. On the other hand, Feng Suiqiu was sneering. She felt that Yi Tianyun was waiting for death this time. Even if his ability was not bad, he could only wait to be punished by Elder Nian. I heard that someone has already reported to Elder Nian. This kid is definitely finished. Let's see if he can still be arrogant later. He will be thrown into prison and will never be able to come out. Just thinking about it makes me feel good. We can't let this kid get away with it. Everyone gnashed their teeth at Yi Tianyun. Even if Yi Tianyun was very strong, he could not convince the crowd. This was their nature. They would never admit that the human clan could ride on their heads. Yi Tianyun looked at them coldly and said, "Don't talk nonsense up there. If you are a man, come down and challenge me. Didn't you want to duel with me before? Now, you can come at me. I will take on as many as you want." These words made their faces turn green and white. If they went down, they would definitely lose. How could they continue to play? Whether it was the number one genius of the inner hall, the genius of the core hall, or the existence with a backer, they would all be crushed. This made them feel very tragic. They did not know what to do. Should they go down, or should they really stay up there and be cowards? They did not want to be cowards, but if they went down, they would definitely lose. The result did not seem to be good. What? Are you all not willing to come down? Since you have been waiting for so long, choose to admit defeat and apologize to my friend. Yi Tianyun pointed at Lei Zhengyu and said coldly, "You have already made a promise before. Now you can fulfill it." They looked at Lei Zhengyu and did not know what to say. Did they really have to lower their heads to the human clan? But if they did not lower their heads, the young man in front of them would definitely scold them to death. At that time, it would be even more embarrassing. When they were in despair, a familiar figure appeared beside them. It was Nian Xiaoyu who was flying over. There were also a few female disciples beside her. Clearly, they deliberately went over to bring people over. When they saw Nian Xiaoyu, they immediately revealed pleasantly surprised gazes. When they looked at Yi Tianyun, their gazes were filled with ridicule. More of them were gloating over his misfortune. Injuring Feng Suiqiu, let's see how this ends. Elder Nian, he was the one who injured senior apprentice sister Feng. Moreover, he was very heavy-handed. Not only was he heavy-handed, he even insulted senior apprentice sister Feng. The female cultivator beside her added oil and vinegar. Yi Tianyun did not insult Feng Suiqiu from start to finish. They only saw Feng Suiqiu continuously insulting Yi Tianyun. "You are talking nonsense. Brother Yi did not insult them. I only heard them insulting Brother Yi all the time." Lei Zhengyu stood out without hesitation and firmly stood his ground. "That's right. We can all testify that Elder Nian absolutely did not insult senior apprentice sister Feng. It was entirely senior apprentice sister Feng who insulted him first." None of them shut up. In the end, there were still some people who chose to stand out and defend Yi Tianyun. When Nian Xiaoyu saw Yi Tianyun, she immediately rolled her eyes at him and said, "I was just about to ask where you went. I looked for you for half a day. I did not expect you to come here and cause trouble." Chapter 954. I heard that someone bullied my friend, so I came to see what was going on. I didn't expect that someone would insult me, so my friend stood up for me. Yi Tianyun shrugged his shoulders and glanced at the group of people on the side. "You even said that I entered the core hall through the back door, and that I might not be human. Isn't that an insult to me?" As soon as Yi Tianyun said this, everyone present was dumbfounded. Why did these words sound so familiar? You are the human who created the record? They were all dumbfounded. The existence that they had suspected for a long time was right in front of them, and he easily killed their people. This proved that he was really someone with real strength. What's going on? He is the genius that appeared in our human clan, Yi Tianyun. The cultivator next to Lei Zhengyu looked at Yi Tianyun, and then looked at Lei Zhengyu. His eyes were full of shock. "Yeah, didn't you hear me call him Brother Yi? His real name is Yi Tianyun." Lei Zhengyu rolled his eyes at him. He had called him Brother Yi so many times. Did these people not know? They opened their mouths wide. How could they think that it was Yi Tianyun? There were so many people with the surname Yi. They couldn't be sure that it was Yi Tianyun just because he called him Brother Yi, right? They didn't expect that he was really a legendary existence. He had broken several records. Just based on this, he was a super popular person. His status was definitely much higher than Feng Tsuechio's. The two could be said to be at a different level. The people on the other side were also dumbfounded. They felt like they had eaten a fly. This was no longer an iron plate, but a mountain. The key was to see what Nian Xiyu would say. Everything depended on her judgment. Nian Xiyu's expression quickly became cold. She turned her head and looked at them. She said coldly, "Is there such a thing?" She was very unhappy now. Yi Tianyun was the hope of the heavenly mandate divine realm. If something happened, who could bear the responsibility? She didn't even need to investigate to know what the problem was. In the end, it was still a problem of racial discrimination. This kind of matter was indeed a headache. She did not expect that it would fall on Yi Tianyun. This was not something she wished to see. If Yi Tianyun had a bad feeling and did not work hard for the heavenly mandate divine realm, it would be a great loss for them. Yes, there is such a thing. They all lowered their heads, their hearts chilled, especially the lady who had planned to watch Yi Tianyun get punished. She was dumbstruck, and her heart sank to the bottom. She had thought that Nian Xiyu would stand by her side, but now it seemed that she was gravely mistaken. She was completely standing by Yi Tianyun's side. If she was standing beside them, Nian Xiyu wouldn't have asked such a question. Instead, she would have directly punished Yi Tianyun severely. Good, very good. After Nian Xiyu shouted twice, she looked at them coldly and said, "This is the arena, if you bet, you must be willing to lose. You are still not willing to admit it. If this gets out, how can we, the heavenly mandate divine realm, have any face left? Do you want others to laugh at us, the heavenly mandate divine realm, saying that we are all untrustworthy, especially to our own clan?" No, it's not like that. Their voices were very low, not as arrogant as before. Each of them was like a child who had done something wrong. They lowered their heads and did not dare to refute. "Whether it is like that or not, now that you have done it, I will give you a choice, and that is to correct your own mistakes. Apologize to Yi Tianyun obediently. He not only created a record, but his strength is also stronger than yours. Instead of cultivating properly, all of you are here grinning mischievously. What a scandal." Nian Xiyu motioned for them to apologize quickly. No matter what, Yi Tianyun was in the right, so they naturally let them apologize. They felt very uncomfortable, but since Nian Xiyu had said so, they could only say to Yi Tianyun, "I am sorry, it is all our fault. We spoke nonsense and caused you trouble. We are very sorry." They chose to apologize one by one, but it was really embarrassing. It was like being pressed on the floor to apologize, and it was more uncomfortable than eating a fly. Yi Tianyun glanced at them and nodded gently. He did not bother to pay attention to them. He knew that it was impossible to change their minds immediately. Everything could only be done slowly. If he wanted to change their minds, the most important thing was for the human clan to become stronger, so that such a situation would not occur. It was impossible for him to change it by himself. He needed to change it little by little. Therefore, he did not care about their attitude, and he could only take it slowly. After apologizing, Nian Xiyu looked at him helplessly and said, "Can we go now? I am ready here. It is time to go with me." "Almost. Elder Nian, wait for me for a moment." Yi Tianyun smiled and immediately came to Lei Zhengyu's side and said, "Brother Lei, thank you for your help before. It is just that you are a little stubborn." He also gave a thumbs up to Lei Zhengyu. Even though he was not strong, his pride was very strong, and he was very friendly to friends. He could feel that Lei Zhengyu really treated him as a good friend. "Don't say that, it is embarrassing." Lei Zhengyu scratched his head and smiled. "Actually, I feel that Brother Yi is very powerful, and you are my first friend here. If others speak ill of you, I will definitely not forgive them. Moreover, they insulted the human clan, which is even more unforgivable." Yi Tianyun patted his shoulder and took out a mid-grade reincarnation-grade weapon. Under everyone's shocked gaze, he handed it to Lei Zhengyu and said, "This is a gift for you. It should be of great help to you." Mid-grade reincarnation-grade weapon? Lei Zhengyu was shocked and immediately pushed the weapon back. "No, this weapon is too precious. I cannot accept it. You should keep it for yourself. That way, you will be able to use it to its greatest effect." Yi Tianyun shook his head and smiled, "Take it. If you don't take it, it means that you do not treat me as a friend." This. Lei Zhengyu looked at Yi Tianyun's determined gaze and had no choice but to accept the weapon. "All right then, I will accept this weapon. Thinking about it, I really made a big profit this time." The others were very envious, but this was what he deserved. If it were them, would they dare to stand up for him? This was equivalent to risking their lives. It was not that easy to earn. "Then, Brother Lei, cultivate well. I look forward to your performance in the future." Yi Tianyun patted his shoulder and turned to leave with Nian Xiu. Lei Zhengyu looked at his back as he left and clenched his fist, "I should work harder. Otherwise, it will be difficult to protect my hometown." His gaze was filled with determination. He had never been at a loss. It must be said that his Dao heart was very shocking. Ding, successfully subdued Lei Zhengyu as a god general. Obtained 50 billion experience points, 5 million proficiency points. Chapter 955. The problem of the race has always existed. I thought about it before, but I didn't expect it to appear on you so quickly. Nian Xiu didn't console him and instead said cruelly, "This is a common problem in the divine realm. It is hard to change in a short time. Currently, we can at most change ourselves. It is too difficult to help people of the same race change." When she said that she wanted to change herself, she was mainly talking about changing the way others saw her. This was quite easy. Yi Tianyun was very strong, and if he could get into the top 10 in the Divine Realm Ascending Battle, or even the top 50, he would be recognized immediately. The people on this side immediately became very respectful to him. There was absolutely no discrimination in this, but absolute worship. However, this was only for Yi Tianyun. As for the other humans, they couldn't be bothered to care. This was like how the Phoenix race treated him well. They were hostile to the other humans, but he was an exception. After all, he helped the Phoenix race before, which was why he received such treatment. Hence, it was the same here. After receiving glory, he was the only one who was different. The others would still be discriminated against. Yi Tianyun nodded and said calmly, "I understand. It is indeed more difficult. I don't expect to change anything now. I don't intend to purposely change everything." When he saw those people, they just gave him a little help and made him their leader or something, and then he led them. He didn't think about this for now. After all, this required too much time and was very difficult. He couldn't even deal with his own matters now, let alone such a thing. Nian Xiu looked at him and thought for a while before saying, "Actually, our Sky Feather race has always been like this. We walked step by step until we obtained this divine realm. Races without divine realms have always been looked down upon." She pointed out the most crucial point, which was the territory. Without the Yin family's territory, coming here was equivalent to being an outsider. The other races could be so arrogant mainly because they had status here. Their bloodlines were even stronger. Have divine realms? Yi Tianyun shook his head. With his current situation, he couldn't complete such a difficult task for the time being, just like in the three realms. It wasn't even a grade 1 faction, yet it wanted to become a deity nation faction. One could easily imagine how difficult it was. Nian Xiu heaved a sigh of relief when she saw that he was no longer thinking about it. What she was most worried about was that Yi Tianyun would wave his hand and say that he would take over the divine domain or rule over the human race. It was as if his head had been kicked by a donkey. He would be slapped to death in minutes. After all, this idea was very dangerous. There were so many people who did not like the human race, so they naturally did not want the human race to rise. Yi Tianyun's cultivation wasn't bad, but to them, he was just an ant that could be squashed to death with a flip of their hand. If he wanted to change it, then the cultivation base of the Lord of Heaven was nothing but a fart. It was completely useless. The Heavenly Feather clan was able to occupy the Heavenly Mandate Divine Realm not only because they were strong, but also because they had been here for generations and had occupied the place for a long time. Under Nyen Xiaoyu's lead, they boarded the spirit ship and flew towards an unknown place. Yi Tianyun couldn't be bothered to care about where Nyen Xiaoyu was going. Anyway, as he had said before, he would be taken to the core area. As for where the core area was, he was not too sure. Especially since they were going there through the spirit ship and not through the teleportation formation, it was enough to prove that the place should be relatively hidden. Aren't you curious about the core area that I am taking you to? What kind of place is it? Nyen Xiaoyu saw that Yi Tianyun was calm and could not help but ask. No matter where it is, we will find out when we get there. Anyway, I believe that Elder Nyen will not trick me, right? Yi Tianyun smiled and said. That is true. Nyen Xiaoyu was suddenly speechless. She just thought that Yi Tianyun would be a little curious. She did not expect him to be so calm. Then, Nyen Xiaoyu stopped talking and continued to fly forward with him. Not long after, Nyen Xiaoyu said again, "We are ready." At this time, Yi Tianyun opened his eyes and looked forward. It was still a huge planet outside. However, from the outside, all he could see was a hall and nothing else. Let's go out. Nyen Xiaoyu took him outside. Not long after they flew out, there were immediately guards intercepting them. These guards were all triple refined Earth Lords. Their cultivation was quite good. Oh, it is Elder Nyen. The guards recognized Nyen Xiaoyu. If they did not even know who Nyen Xiaoyu was, then they had been guarding here for so many years in vain. Yes, I am bringing someone in. I have already reported it, Nyen Xiaoyu said. The two of them looked up and down at Yi Tianyun, then nodded and said, "You are allowed to pass." Nyen Xiaoyu looked at Yi Tianyun's direction and continued to fly down with him. Yi Tianyun looked at the guards behind and said in confusion, "This place is a bit too strict. Elder Nyen, you can't even bring anyone in." "If I could bring anyone in, I would not have gone to the Region Lord for approval," Nyen Xiaoyu said in a deep voice. Nyen Xiaoyu said in a deep voice, "This could be said to be the best place for training in the Heavenly Mandate Divine Realm. If anyone could be brought in, the energy here would have been exhausted long ago." The best place for cultivation. Yi Tianyun's eyes lit up. He wanted to see what the best place for cultivation was. When he just landed, he immediately felt a strong vitality coming from under his feet. It made him feel like he was bathing in the spring breeze. He felt that all the pores in his body were opened. This life force was even stronger compared to the longevity equipment. Even ordinary humans would be able to extend their lifespans by staying here. Even if they did not cultivate, they could easily break through to the Spirit King stage. Such a strong vitality. Yi Tianyun looked up and saw a hall in front of him. It was not very big. The real highlight was that there was a huge tree on top of the main hall, wrapping the entire main hall inside. However, he could see that the tree was formed later. It was impossible for the hall to be built before the tree. Of course, this is the place with the strongest vitality. No matter what kind of hidden injuries you have, you can get relief or even be cured here. Nyen Xiaoyu said proudly, "It can be said that among the many first-grade divine realms, our longevity temple is definitely ranked in the top 3. He did not know the ranking of the cultivation places, but he could feel that this place was amazing. "Elder Nyen, are you asking me to heal my injuries?" Yi Tianyun smiled and said, "I remember you said that you need to improve yourself by fighting, right?" Chapter 956. Nyen Xiaoyu's words made Yi Tianyun feel quite interested. It was not a battle, but it was more effective than a battle. "I hope so." Yi Tianyun's eyes flashed. He relied on battles to gain experience. If the experience gained here was too little, it would not be as fast as fighting and killing enemies. Unless the experience gained here was extremely fast, it was also a good place, especially since the life force here was so rich, which could strengthen his body slightly. Then, under Nian Siyu's lead, they walked into the hall. What came into view was not a luxurious place. It was surrounded by countless trees and vines. From here, they could see a long corridor, which was in the shape of a spiral, continuously winding to the bottom. Looking down casually, they knew that the depth was too shocking. He even wondered if the entire planet was penetrated by this corridor. The deeper they went, the richer the life force was, which was released here. Below, they could even see that the life force had become solid. Green starlight floated in the air, which showed how rich the life force was. Is that Captain Gu? Yi Tianyun was stunned. He did not expect to see an acquaintance here. Not to mention Captain Gu, even his old rival, Tri Yuan, was here. The area where they stayed was not deep, roughly a few thousand meters deep. They were meditating and cultivating by the side of the corridor. Didn't you say that this is the core area? Why do I see so many people here? Yi Tianyun glanced over and found that the lowest level of cultivation here was the Lord of Earth, and the highest was the Lord of Heaven. This was not the point. The point was that there were many cultivators here. Not to mention the number, there were dozens of people cultivating here. He thought there were only a few people here. He did not expect there to be so many, especially some captains here, which made him very confused. Nian Siyu saw his confusion and explained with a smile, the core area is not an absolute core secret. As long as you provide a certain amount of contribution points, you can still come in and cultivate. Hearing Nian Siyu's explanation, he looked carefully and found that it was true. There were so many people here, and some of them were captains. To put it bluntly, they were similar to guards with a higher status. They maintained most of the order in the heavenly mandate divine realm, so they contributed more. It was not wrong to let them in. How many contribution points are needed? Yi Tianyun asked. You have to help maintain order here for at least 500 years. At the same time, you have to hand over 20 choice tokens before you can come in and cultivate for a month, Nian Xiaoyu replied. This. Yi Tianyun wiped the cold sweat off his forehead. This requirement was really high. Although he had thought about it, this requirement was really not low. 500 years plus 20 election tokens, which meant that the election tokens obtained after 200 years of service were handed over just like that. Furthermore, he could only stay for a month. He had to spend 200 years to exchange for a month's time. There are many ways to obtain the choice token. The biggest foundation is 500 years. Nian Xiaoyu couldn't help but laugh when she saw Yi Tianyun being frightened. Indeed, the biggest problem was 500 years. It wasn't long, but it wasn't short either. Of course, the 20 choice tokens were also a difficult problem, and the price they had to pay was not small. However, if the first condition was met, as long as one used something to exchange for an election token, they could also come here to cultivate. It was just that the price was really high. No wonder it was called the core area and still needed to be approved. Then what about us disciples? How can we come in? Yi Tianyun asked. This also depends on one's contribution to the mission, or one's talent. Some of them can be made an exception to let you in to cultivate. For example, you are one of them. Our original plan was to wait for the next Divine Realm Ascension battle before you participate. Or you can participate in the battle in advance, but that is on the premise of gaining some experience. Nian Xiaoyu explained, however, you are very outstanding and your breakthrough speed is shocking. We plan to let you be one of the main forces in this Divine Realm Ascension battle. That is why we made an exception to let you in. Otherwise, you really wouldn't be able to come in. Then how long can I stay here? Yi Tianyun asked. As you are a little special, the requirements are stricter. You will run down from here. The lower you go, the heavier the pressure. Even the Lord of Heaven can cultivate here. Nyen Xiaoyu explained, your starting point is 1 month. The lower you go, the more 1 month you can have, so on and so forth. In this life God temple, there is a total of 100,000 meters. This means that if you can run to the bottom, you can get 20 months. Of course, if you can really surpass 80,000 meters, you can get an additional year. If you can run to 100,000 meters, then you can stay until the Divine Realm Ascension battle. Before 80,000 meters, this 5,000 meters is the standard. How far you can run will depend on your ability. After hearing this rule, he really didn't get resources for free. As expected, he needed to fight for it with his own strength. This is easy, 100,000 meters is the deepest. Yi Tianyun lowered his head and looked down. It was really deep. If he flew normally, 100,000 meters would be gone in the blink of an eye. The difficulty of going down was definitely not small. Otherwise, it wouldn't have such a high difficulty. Let me explain here. There are a few of the strongest geniuses in the core hall who are already cultivating at the bottom. They are really arrogant. If you can knock them down a peg, we will be very happy to see this. Nyen Xiaoyu looked at him with a smile. If I help knock them down, will I get any benefits? Yi Tianyun smiled. Not really. Can't I help them along the way? Nyen Xiaoyu smiled, unless you are not willing to go down, I believe that with your strength, it won't be a problem for you to surpass them. Nyen Xiaoyu knew his ability. He was able to suppress an early-stage Lord of Heaven. Dealing with these core hall disciples was a piece of cake. All of them were extremely arrogant. If someone could knock them down and wake them up, letting them know that there was always someone better, it was a good choice. This will depend on the cultivation area. Does it satisfy my needs? If it doesn't, then I won't continue. Yi Tianyun shrugged. If the experience gained wasn't objective, then there was no point in staying here. If this place can't satisfy you, then there really isn't any place in the first-grade God domain that can satisfy you. Nyen Xiaoyu smiled, fighting isn't the standard to temper yourself. This can also satisfy you, especially since your breakthrough speed is too fast. This place can stabilize your cultivation. Chapter 957. After listening to the instructions, Nyen Xiaoyu left and told him to stay here and cultivate. Nyen Xiaoyu still had a lot of things to do. The Divine Domain Ascension battle was about to begin, and there was a lot of preparation work for the elders. Let's go down and see how it works. Yi Tianyun glanced down the stairs and immediately turned to run down the stairs. Just as he walked down, he immediately felt a rich life force transmitting from his feet. Obtained 5,000 experience points, 6,000 experience points, 7,000 experience points. As he walked down, he gained more and more experience. He didn't even need to absorb it deliberately, and the experience kept rising. What surprised him the most was that the planet in his body also began to absorb the life force, making the trees on it more vigorous and nourishing the entire world. There's such an effect. Yi Tianyun's eyes flickered. When he solidified this planet, he didn't know what it was. After understanding it, he discovered that it was a change in the power in his body. To have the power of a planet, one had to keep condensing it. Very few people could condense it at the Star Lord level. Most people could only condense it at the 5th or 6th refinement of the Earth Lord level. This was considered relatively fast. Some even broke through to the Lord of Heaven to be able to condense it. One could imagine how difficult it was. Yi Tianyun could condense it at the very beginning. Now, the power of the planet had formed and was expanding rapidly. In fact, that power was astral power. With this planet circulating in his body, it would continuously produce star power and store star power. With continuous cultivation, the planet would become bigger and bigger. In the end, living creatures could even live on it. It could be said that this was a very important thing. Without this planet, one would fall behind by a lot in the future and would basically be like a cultivator who couldn't even get started. Now, when Tianyun went down, he discovered that his planet was being nourished. This meant that if this continued, his planet would continue to expand and become stronger. When he first came to the divine domain, he condensed a planet to have stronger power. This meant that if this continued, his power would continue to expand again. Grade 1 planet. Tianyun watched the planet in his body strengthen bit by bit. With continuous nourishment, it was very likely to break through to a grade 2 planet. The power of the planets in one's body was also divided into grades. The higher the grade, the stronger it would be. This was similar to the strength of meridians. The stronger the planet, the stronger the meridians. Looks like this is indeed a good place. Not only can I obtain experience, but I can also expand the planet in my body. I wonder if they think that I have obtained the power of a planet? Tianyun's eyes flickered, and he immediately smiled, speeding down. 20,000 experience points, 30,000 experience points, 40,000 experience points. As he sprinted, his experience bar shot up rapidly. It was quite impressive. In the blink of an eye, he had reached a height of more than 1,000 meters. Here, the pressure rapidly multiplied. There was a kind of gravitational force pressing down from above. It was at least 1 billion kilograms. They had only been running for 1,000 meters, but there was already such a terrifying gravitational force. It was really shocking. No wonder Gu Yanlong and the others could only stay at around 16,000 meters. That was probably their limit. If they continued to run, not to mention walking, it would be good if they could even meditate there. His addition was not eye-catching. Everyone was focused on meditating and cultivating. Time was very precious here, and they could not afford to waste a single second. Therefore, they tried their best to absorb the life force here to nourish the power in their bodies. Not only was the life force here rich, but the spiritual power here was even richer. It could be said to have reached an astonishing level. No wonder it was said to be the best place to cultivate. Those words were not made up. As he sprinted down, his speed did not decrease at all. Soon, he reached Gu Yanlong's side. Gu Yanlong felt someone approaching and opened his eyes subconsciously. "It's you." When Gu Yanlong saw Tianyun, he was instantly stunned. "Captain Gu, long time no see." Tianyun smiled. Actually, it had not been many days since they last met. In other words, it was less than a few months. Indeed, it has been a while. Gu Yanlong hurriedly stood up and looked him up and down. He said in surprise, "I thought that you might make an exception to enter. Now, you really made an exception. As expected of a genius. Yurong has already told me about you. You are amazing in all aspects. Your talent is really amazing. But this is more than 10,000 meters. You came down so easily." Gu Yanlong was very surprised and felt that it was inconceivable. He obviously did not know about Tianyun's situation, nor did he know about the situation on the arena. Even a 3rd or 4th tier Earth monarch was easily defeated. If he knew, he would not have asked such a question. "It's all right." Tianyun said modestly. "Isn't this the human from before?" Beside him, Shu Yuan also stood up in surprise. When he saw Tianyun, he was dumbfounded. Then, his eyes were filled with jealousy. When he saw Tianyun coming over, it meant that an exception was made to enter. Only those with amazing talent could enter early without a lot of contribution points. These people were called seated contestants. Disciples who could participate in the ascending battle of the deity realm would not have that much time to slowly accumulate contribution points. Therefore, an exception was made to allow them into this area. That's right. This is the human that you looked down on before. Now he has entered the God Temple of Life. Gu Yanlong sneered at Shu Yuan. It was an obvious slap in the face. Humph. Shu Yuan did not refute. He was already here. What else could he say? No matter what he said, it would only be a slap in the face. He had spent 500 years to enter this area, but Yi Tianyun had entered so easily. If he still sneered at him, he would only be humiliating himself. Gu Yanlong smiled and looked at Yi Tianyun and said, "Then let's cultivate. Time is really precious here, I can only exchange for 2 months of time." Gu Yanlong said. "Okay, then you cultivate well. Make every second count. I don't have much time either." After greeting Shu Yuan, Yi Tianyun continued to rush forward under Shu Yuan's surprised gaze. What's going on? This brat can still go down. Shu Yuan and the others were shocked. Staying here was already their limit. It should be said that it was not their limit, but if they wanted to cultivate, they could only stay here. It was like being suppressed by an unbearable force all the time. It was impossible to cultivate well. In the blink of an eye, Yi Tianyun had already rushed up 20,000 meters in one go. He had left the two of them far behind, which shocked them to their core. The last time they saw Yi Tianyun, he was only a Star Lord. Chapter 958. Is this kid trying to show off? It won't do him any good to go down and cultivate by force. Looking at Yi Tianyun's figure, Shu Yuan felt disdain and shook his head. Young people will always be young people. We can also go down by force, but what's the point if we can't cultivate? I can feel that his cultivation has broken through. He should be a second refinement Earth Lord, Gu Yanlong said, shaking his head. When Yi Tianyun left, he left a strand of aura so that Shu Yuan could roughly feel his cultivation. The energy fluctuation couldn't be faked. He could still feel it clearly. Second refinement Earth Lord. Shu Yuan almost bit his tongue. Last time, he was a Star Lord, but now he was a second refinement Earth Lord. How did he cultivate? The jealousy in his eyes intensified, but he still said mercilessly, "So what if he's a second refinement Earth Lord? I'm a third refinement Earth Lord. I'm sure that he'll turn back in a moment and obediently cultivate nearby." He didn't want to admit defeat, so he was sure that Yi Tianyun couldn't have gone far. "Oh, looks like you're still stubborn. You won't admit defeat. Do you want to bet with me again?" Gu Yanlong sneered. This. Shu Yuan was stunned. He remembered that he lost the previous bet. If he lost again, wouldn't he lose his underwear? What this? I'm asking you if you want to bet or not. Let's not bet on anything else. We'll bet on 20 election tokens, which is a month's time. Gu Yanlong looked at him and said. Damn it, let's bet. I don't believe it. Shu Yuan was furious. He didn't believe that Yi Tianyun could create another miracle, but how should we bet? At least set a standard. How about I lose if I go back and cultivate nearby? I win if I can stay above 20,000 meters. How about that? Gu Yanlong said with a smile. Deal. Shu Yuan made the decision immediately. He looked at Gu Jun and smiled. Captain Gu, you're going to lose this time. How can you stay above 20,000 meters without an Earth Monarch at the 4th level? Indeed, without a 4th refinement Earth Lord, one can't stay above 20,000 meters, but that depends on the person. Gu Yanlong smiled. I believe he can stay longer this time. What a joke. His cultivation base must be unstable for him to advance so quickly. It's fine if your foundation is stable, but if you break through so quickly, you definitely won't be able to stabilize your foundation. Tri Yuan continued to refute. I'm not going to say anything more to you. Won't you know later? Gu Yanlong couldn't be bothered with him. After all, no matter what he said, the other party would refute him, so he couldn't be bothered with him. Alright, let's wait and see. Shu Yuan humphed coldly and sat down to cultivate while observing the situation below. If he had scouted for information from the outside, he would never have made such a bet. It was simply a free gift. Kid, you must create a miracle. Gu Yanlong smiled and said, "Whether or not I can continue to stay here for another month depends on you." He did not know why, but he felt that Yi Tianyun could continue to create miracles. Of course, Yi Tianyun didn't know what they were betting on. He just kept rushing downwards and soon reached 25,000 meters. After a while, he reached 30,000 meters again. His speed was like a gust of wind as he rushed downwards. Up above, Tri Yuan was dumbfounded. It had only been a few minutes since the bet was made, and the result was already out. "Captain Tri, you lost." Gu Yanlong smiled and said, "If you can reach 30,000 meters so easily, I believe that even if you can't withstand it later on, you can at least reach 20,000 meters, right?" With their abilities, they couldn't even reach 25,000 meters, let alone 30,000 meters. Those who could reach 30,000 meters would definitely be able to stay above 20,000 meters for a long time. I. Tri Yuan was about to cry. He had worked so hard to collect dozens of tokens, and now he had to give away 20 of them. It was a huge loss. "What about me? Hurry up." Gu Yanlong walked over and patted his shoulder. I'll give it to you." Tri Yuan clenched his teeth and handed over the token. Seeing the token being taken away, Tri Yuan could feel his heart bleeding. It was such a loss. The result was decided in just a few minutes. He thought it would take a long time. "This kid is really my lucky star." Gu Yanlong smiled and said to Tri Yuan, "But you are my god of fortune. You can stay here for another month. Humans can't be that powerful. He must have some kind of ability." Tri Yuan could only comfort himself like that. Yi Tianyun had no idea that the bet was settled so quickly. He continued to run downwards. He felt that the life force was getting denser and denser. More and more life force was flowing into his body. His experience points increased from 1,000 to 1,000,000. Basically, he gained 1,000,000 experience points in just a few seconds. The speed of gaining experience points was quite shocking. Most importantly, the planet's nourishing speed was even faster. The trees that were originally small saplings grew to a few meters tall in an instant. Soon, when he reached 50,000 meters, a young man passing by opened his eyes and was surprised to see a stranger passing by. "Who is that?" The person surpassed him so easily, and he looked even younger. He frowned and wondered who this guy was. Not only did Yi Tianyun surpass him, but he also passed by many cultivators. Some were Lord of Heaven, and some were outstanding disciples of the core hall. All of them were easily surpassed by him, which immediately attracted their attention. Especially since he was a new face, they had never seen him before. A new face could reach more than 50,000 meters from the very beginning. His ability was quite shocking. Who is that kid? Is he a new disciple of the core hall? It can't be. He just joined and he can rush so deep. That's not possible, right? He looks so young, and his cultivation doesn't seem high. Let me feel his aura. He seems to be a third refinement Earth Lord. There were elders and deacons meditating below. Their cultivation levels were not low. There was no lack of 5th or 6th refinement Earth Lords, and no lack of Lord of Heaven. Of course, this Lord of Heaven was probably around the 5th or 6th refinement Earth Lord. He was not very strong. However, they were all easily surpassed by Yi Tianyun in the area they were in. All of them were dumbfounded. They didn't know who this newcomer was. When Yi Tianyun surpassed a young girl, she suddenly opened her eyes. A golden light shot out from her beautiful eyes. It was as though it was material and almost penetrated the ground in front of her. Who is he? When the young girl saw Yi Tianyun's back view, she stood up from her meditation and looked at him with a burning gaze. Interesting. There are really not many people who can surpass me when we are around the same age. She didn't think much and actually chased after him. It seemed like she wanted to have a contest with Yi Tianyun. Chapter 959. This girl's eyes were filled with battle intent. She actually didn't plan to continue cultivating here. Instead, she sprinted forward in a frenzy. Her speed was rather astonishing. She caught up to Yi Tianyun in an instant. Yi Tianyun felt someone beside him. He subconsciously turned his head and saw an absolute beauty chasing after him. She was dressed in green, and her light green hair was fluttering behind her. Not only was she dressed in green, but her eyes were also light green like two emeralds. They looked rather beautiful. Especially when she was chasing after him, every step she took would produce a small tuft of flowers and grass, which highlighted her extraordinariness. Blooming flowers with every step. Is this the wood deity body? Yi Tianyun was startled. His appraisal eye displayed the detailed information of the other party. This girl's cultivation was at the 7th refinement Earth Monarch. Not to mention, she also had the wood deity body, which was several times stronger than the ice sage body. One was a sage, one was a god. The difference was obvious. The wood deity body could be said to be blessed by the vitality of heaven and earth. As long as it was related to the wood attribute, it would have a great effect on her. This meant that cultivating here for a day was equivalent to cultivating for a month for others. This was the difference. Some talents couldn't be caught up with just hard work. The difference was simply too great. Unless she didn't cultivate and forcefully suppressed her cultivation, no one could catch up to her. Are you new here? Murong Xiao asked with a smile. More or less. It seems like you are the strongest disciple in the core hall. Yi Tianyun ran all the way. Apart from her, no one else was at the front. As for those Lord of Heaven, they didn't have a chance once they broke through to the Lord of Heaven. The Ascension battle only allowed Earth Monarchs. Lord of Heaven definitely didn't want them. Of course, there were exceptions. For example, those at the 8th or 9th refinement Earth Monarchs had some value. Before that, they didn't have much value. Second-grade gods wouldn't want them at all. Strongest disciple in the core hall. Murong Xiao squinted his eyes and smiled. The strongest disciple you mentioned is that person. He has always wanted to catch up to me, but he has always been behind me without any motivation. I'm dying of boredom here. No one can play with me. Yi Tianyun turned his head to look at the youth who was standing quite a distance away from them. His face was filled with shock. He was the strongest disciple of the core palace. Upon closer inspection, it was indeed the case. Reaching the 7th refinement Earth Lord cultivation level was indeed quite strong. However, he was also a 7th refinement Earth Monarch, but the gap between him and Murong Xiao was more than 10,000 meters. Not to mention catching up, he couldn't even get close. Unless it was an elder-level existence, it would be impossible for them to catch up. If he is the strongest disciple of the core palace, then are you not from the core palace? Yi Tianyun was a little surprised. If she was not a core disciple, then where was she from? Of course I'm not from the core palace, I'm. Murong Xiao smiled brilliantly, and said to him, if you catch up to me, I'll tell you. She broke into a run and sprinted forward, stirring up a wave of fragrance in front of him. To be able to run so fast at this level, it had to be said that her strength was astonishing. Indeed, in this divine realm, there were many geniuses. This was already a distance of 60,000 meters, and she could still run so fast. It seemed like she was playing this way on purpose. Other people couldn't wait to stay here for a while longer, but she seemed to be impatient. She could even stay here and wait for others to catch up. This was the difference between people. Presumably, she was the daughter of some big family, otherwise, how could she be so willful? Yi Tianyun shook his head, and couldn't be bothered with her. He raised his leg and chased after her, and without any suspense, he caught up to Murong Xiao. Looks like you're really naughty. I'm actually not interested in catching up to you at all. Yi Tianyun smiled and said, of course, I'm not interested in your identity either. I'm just asking casually. After saying that, he sped up and overtook Murong Xiao. His speed continued to increase, and the distance between the two of them widened. Murong Xiao watched as he got further and further away. She was startled at first, but then she smiled brilliantly and said, "Interesting, I haven't had such an opponent in a long time." After saying that, she increased her speed as well. Her footsteps became faster and faster, and flowers bloomed under her feet. Under the astonished gazes of the crowd, the two of them began a chase. Others were struggling to persevere here, but they seemed to be playing, running down easily. This caused the crowd to be dumbfounded. Damn, where did they come from? How could they run above 60,000 meters so easily? You're asking me, but who am I supposed to ask? Most importantly, they're humans. Am I seeing things? None of them knew. Only the young man sitting in front of them could be considered as the second strongest existence. He clenched his fists tightly and stared at Yi Tianyun. What's wrong with this brat? He stole my thunder. Murong Xiao even started running with him. If he gets the chance, we're finished. He was the first disciple of the core hall, Yuan Tianyu. Whether it was talent or strength, he was number one in the core hall. Of course, the first disciple referred to the new batch. If compared to the old batch, there was no way they could compare. He really wanted to catch up, but he couldn't run at all. A terrifying power was pressing down on him, making it difficult for him to move. Damn, is this the difference between a genius and a genius? Gu Yanlong couldn't even cultivate in peace. He didn't know what to say when he saw the chase between Yi Tianyun and Murong Xiao. Xu Yuan's expression was extremely ugly. This time, he didn't lose unjustly. His opponent was about to reach 70,000 meters. He was a one-man race, and they wouldn't be able to catch up even if they had two more legs. Everyone had different thoughts. There were two people who made it difficult for them to cultivate in peace. They all opened their eyes to see who would lose first. I don't believe I can't catch up with you. Murong Xiao bit her lips, and a faint green light suddenly shone from her body. Then, a red lotus appeared behind her and blossomed in the air. It was very beautiful. At this moment, the blossoming flower under her feet was even more shocking. The pressure on her body was reduced, and she suddenly sped up. Gradually, the distance between them was shortened. Yi Tianyun glanced at them and couldn't help but smile. Geniuses were indeed somewhat arrogant. They were starting to catch up with their full strength. However, he didn't use his full strength. He only used his physical strength and nothing else. His physical strength alone was enough to charge down. Chapter 960. Yi Tianyun didn't have the habit of giving face to beauties. He maintained a steady speed as he ran down. The more he ran, the more experience he gained. The key to him coming down here was to gain experience, not to get to know these beauties. Murong Xiao spent a lot of effort to barely catch up. However, her forehead was already dripping with sweat. It was enough to show that the pressure here had a big effect on her. Yi Tianyun looked carefully and found that Murong Xiao's body had changed. The life force around her was constantly being absorbed to replenish her body's consumption. No wonder she could persist for so long. This is a paradise for her. Yi Tianyun shook his head. With an amazing physique, she would be a lot better than others. Hee, you want to get rid of me? It's not that easy. Murong Xiao glared at him. Her jade feet were constantly flying. She was running barefoot. Especially now that she was dripping with sweat, she looked really tempting. However, Yi Tianyun didn't buy it. Instead, he shrugged helplessly and said, "You say it as if I abandoned you." "I'll say it first. I didn't abandon you. Don't talk nonsense and cause people to misunderstand." You lecher." Murong Xiao's pretty face turned red. Like a cat whose tail had been stepped on, she screamed, "How could this lady be abandoned by you? The number of men chasing this lady can line up from here to my house. You are not even in the line." After being ridiculed, Murong Xiao was angered. She wanted to reach out and grab Yi Tianyun. Yi Tianyun smiled and increased his speed. So don't talk nonsense and cause people to misunderstand. There are a lot of people watching. Yi Tianyun dropped a sentence and continued to run forward at a faster speed, leaving her behind. You can still increase your speed? Murong Xiao was dumbfounded. She was running at the limit of her speed. If she continued to increase her speed, it wouldn't be a normal burst of speed. She would be risking her life. She could only grit her teeth and continue to chase forward so that the distance between them wouldn't be so far apart. However, the distance between them continued to widen bit by bit. Yi Tianyun's figure gradually disappeared into the distance, causing her to feel a sense of helplessness. If they were to compete in terms of speed here, she would only be able to look at his back. There was no way she could catch up to Yi Tianyun. Yi Tianyun had to circulate his dragon god bloodline slightly to raise his strength to the extreme in order to maintain his accelerated state. Otherwise, there was really nothing he could do. The crazy damage mode was not very useful here. It could be said that it had no effect. After all, this was a pressure suppression, not a fight. Therefore, he was purely relying on his physique and his own strength to rush down. Under the effects of the double stacking, he could still persevere. After chasing for a few thousand meters, Murong Xiao finally couldn't take it anymore and stopped. He stomped on the ground and looked at Yi Tianyun angrily. Just you wait, I'll catch up to you soon. Okay, I'll wait for you. Yi Tianyun turned his head and smiled at her. This little girl was really stubborn. After saying that, she sat down on the ground and began to cultivate. She had to get used to the weight here and have a breakthrough before she could move forward. Otherwise, if she continued, she would definitely not be able to persevere. It was already quite amazing that she could sit down and cultivate on the ground. One must know that she was currently at a distance of 73,000 meters, far surpassing the many cultivators behind her. According to gravity, this place was equivalent to more than 70 billion kilograms. The terrifying gravity was enough to make them unable to bear it. She was a delicate girl, but she could still persevere. If it were anyone else, it would be really unbelievable. As Yi Tianyun continued to rush forward, he felt the pressure getting stronger and stronger. With his current situation, it was difficult for him to continue sprinting forward at a fast speed. From the original running to the current walking, the pressure was quite heavy for him. Of course, he could still continue to move forward, but from the initial rapid running to a brisk walk, he could still maintain a good speed. Just a little bit more and I can reach 80,000 meters. When that time comes, it will directly increase the time by 1 year. Yi Tianyun looked at the bottom. His real goal was the bottom. He felt that there was a special force at the bottom. Therefore, he desperately wanted to go down. He didn't want to reach 80,000 meters, which would be considered a success. 80,000 meters was just a small process, and the difficulty was not considered high. Very quickly, he crossed the 80,000 meters mark. The people above were all dumbfounded. 80,000 meters. This was 80,000 meters. To be able to reach this level, probably only the elders could reach this level. But for an unknown human to achieve such an achievement, it was really unbelievable. After reaching 80,000 meters, he had just crossed it when a terrifying pressure pressed down, causing his legs to instantly weaken. He almost knelt down, but he still forced himself to persevere. How did the gravity instantly exceed 50 billion kilograms? Isn't the gap a little too big? Yi Tianyun felt a little speechless. He thought it was still within 100 billion kilograms, but in the blink of an eye, it rushed to more than 100 billion kilograms. The pressure is really too much. This time, his speed immediately slowed down, basically almost the same as walking, even a little slower than walking. 80,000 meters should be the limit. He can't continue, right? Everyone was relieved. If he really climbed to the bottom, then it would be really abnormal. Those who can climb to the bottom are all elders and above, the rest are really not seen. If Yi Tianyun can really go down to the bottom, doesn't it mean that he has the power of an elder? It's almost time, I can only use more power. Yi Tianyun's body shook, and said solemnly, upgrade Dragon God Bloodline. Successfully deducted 50 million crazy points, upgrade Dragon God Bloodline to 7th grade. The next level requires 500 million crazy points. Crackle, crackle, his body began to make a crisp sound. On the surface, his body did not grow bigger, but his body became more solid and terrifying. After the successful upgrade, his strength suddenly increased a lot. Let's go. Yi Tianyun smiled slightly and continued to quickly trot forward. His speed was not fast, but from barely walking before to being able to trot, it is already a great breakthrough. Damn, is there something wrong with my eyes? He can still run? Did he just take a break just now? They just breathed a sigh of relief, but now again, their mouths are wide open, they can't believe it. Chapter 961. Yi Tianyun couldn't be bothered with their gazes. He just continued to run. He didn't use his full strength. He just jogged towards the depths, not too fast nor too slow. No one laughed at his speed. They only felt that he was too strong and had extraordinary abilities. Others were already unable to move an inch, but he could still continue to run. How could they not be shocked? As he ran forward bit by bit, he soon reached 90,000 meters and continued to run for 100,000 meters. This caused everyone to think that this human could reach the lowest level of the pyramid. The situation here quickly alerted the elders outside. Soon, Elder Yu and the others appeared on the side. When they saw the situation, they couldn't help but shake their heads. This kid can run to 90,000 meters. How did he cultivate? I suspect that it won't take long for him to surpass us old men. Yu Yanglong and Ming Yuqing both shook their heads. They didn't know what to say. It hadn't been long, and Yi Tianyun already had such results. According to this, it wouldn't take long for Yi Tianyun to surpass them. Elders are too modest. Even if he can reach the bottom now, it doesn't mean he can surpass you. A deacon on the side said. These words were a bit flattering, but it wasn't a lie. Both of them were Earth monarchs at the 7th or 8th level. Even if they were only at the 2nd level of the Lord of Heaven, with the power of the demon fire, they were far from what an ordinary Lord of Heaven could compare to. If they truly erupted, even an ordinary 5th or 6th level Lord of Heaven wouldn't be able to stop them. These days, cultivation was extremely important. But more importantly, one's foundation needed to be strong enough. If one's foundation was strong enough, it wouldn't be a problem to jump levels to kill. The reason why their cultivation was so slow was largely due to the problem of the demon fire. Because of the demon fire, their breakthroughs were slightly slower. But that didn't mean they were weak. Otherwise, they wouldn't be able to become an elder with a 2nd or 3rd level Lord of Heaven cultivation. If they didn't have some ability, they wouldn't be able to gain everyone's respect. There's no need to say more. If he can quickly become stronger, we'll be even happier. No master didn't want their disciple to surpass them and become stronger. The student surpasses the master. This is what gives the master the most face. However, they were a little embarrassed. In fact, they had only taught demonic fire before. They hadn't taught much else. It was a little forced to say that they had taught demonic fire. Is this the new disciple of the two elders? Looks like he will be a trump card for the ascending battle of the divine domain this time. At this time, a few elders walked in from outside. When they saw Yi Tianyun, they all nodded and praised him. Just based on this strength, there was really nothing much to say. If they still said that they were humans now, then they would be short-sighted. To be able to sit in the position of an elder, one had to place one's sights on the places where there were real benefits, rather than internal strife. Although this kind of thing was not uncommon, at least the people here were relatively united and focused on collective interests. That's right. It seems like our God domain will have 2 trump cards in the ascending battle. The key is that he is our own disciple. Murong Xiao is not a disciple of the heavenly mandate realm. He is just a disciple who was invited to help us. They all shook their heads and saw that the number one disciple of the core hall was far behind Murong Xiao. The gap between the two was like a chasm. They were both 7 refined earth lords, but why was the gap so big? Fortunately, Yi Tianyun made them feel very gratified. Being able to produce an outstanding genius, then in the ascending battle of the divine domain, when they got a good ranking, they didn't need to share too many benefits. It could even be said that there was no need to share. As for Murong Xiao, he had to share a lot. Basically, they could only get a small part. It had to be said that this price was extremely high, but in order to not make the heavenly mandate realm look bad, they had to do this. At this time, Nian Xiu rushed over. It was obvious that she was attracted by the news here. She came to the stairs and looked down. When she saw that Yi Tianyun was already running to the finish line, she suddenly laughed and said, "I thought it would take a long time. I just left not long ago, and I'm almost at the bottom. Elder Nian, how can Yi Tianyun break through so quickly? Is his foundation unstable?" Yu Yanglong saw Nian Xiu and hurried over to ask. Since Nian Xiu brought Yi Tianyun back, there seemed to be a big change. However, this change still made them a little worried. It's okay. Even if his foundation is unstable, isn't he starting to consolidate it now? If he cultivates and consolidates it down there, he will definitely be able to completely consolidate his cultivation before the ascending battle of the divine domain, Nian Xiu said with a smile. That's right. Their eyes continued to turn to Yi Tianyun to see if he could run to the bottom. Although for them, the bottom was not that difficult, for a newcomer, it was definitely not easy. At the same time, as Yi Tianyun quickly ran down, as he got closer and closer to the bottom, he gradually saw something at the bottom. He looked down slightly closer to the stairs and found that there was a huge green gem at the bottom. Isn't this the life crystal of the spirit race? Yi Tianyun was stunned when he saw it. However, upon closer inspection, he realized that it was not a life crystal. Planet core, the core that maintains the flow of life on a planet. Once the core is destroyed, the planet will not be able to continue growing life. It can provide an endless supply of energy. This core is the core of life and has an astonishing vitality. So this is the core of a planet. Yi Tianyun remembered what the evil spirit race had said before. They came to the 3 realms for the core. He did not know how big the core of the 3 realms was. If the core was about the same size as this, it would indeed have an astonishing amount of energy. He had read about this before. Not all planets could condense a core. Some planets were relatively small, but they could condense a core. They were very precious. No wonder it's said that this is the best place to cultivate. That's right. It's so close to the origin energy, how can it not be good for cultivation? Yi Tianyun nodded. He finally understood why such harsh conditions were needed. If anyone could come in and absorb it, this core would quickly dry up. Therefore, people could only enter according to their contribution. If they did not have enough contribution points, they would naturally not be able to enter. He looked at the huge core and felt a little more excited. If he could take away a small part of this life crystal, wouldn't it allow the spirit race to prosper rapidly? That life crystal was like a mini version of the core, and it was equivalent to a grain of sand in a desert. Chapter 962. I wonder if I could ask the elders to give me a bit of the core. Yi Tianyun narrowed his eyes and began to think about this core. After all, he had been searching all over the street and could not find a similar life core. If this continued, the situation in the spirit clan would definitely be difficult to reproduce. It was undoubtedly a very good idea to take a piece back for the time being. After all, the life crystals in the 3 realms did not last long. They could not last more than a few years. Now it seemed that they were about to dry up. When I go out, I'll discuss with them. It's so big, I can cut a small piece out. It's not like I'll die. He thought for a moment and continued to run forward. As he got closer and closer, the pressure increased. This pressure was not caused by the elders of the heavenly mandate divine realm. In fact, it was the energy released by this life core, which made people feel great pressure. Not only was the pressure amazing, but the life force that was pouring in was also amazing. To a large extent, this life force had a kind of substantial energy that was squeezed down from all sides, which was why there was a sense of gravity. Therefore, before being able to withstand this gravity, there was no way to absorb the life force here. Because of this reason, many cultivators who came here to cultivate would first see where their limits were and see if they could absorb the energy. If they could not, they would step back a little until they felt that it was suitable. 96 million experience points, 96,100,000 experience points. When he climbed to more than 96,000 meters, the experience had soared to more than 96 million. According to this situation, if he was the closest, he could basically get as much as 100 million experience points every time. This was without using the crazy experience mode, and he could reach nearly 100 million experience points. Although the experience gained was much less than killing strong cultivators, the experience was stable enough, and the speed of gaining was quite amazing. The key was that it was not limited by his own martial arts, unlike the devouring martial arts, which was a little bit limited. This was to forcefully squeeze in life force. As long as he could withstand this force, he could obtain so much energy. Especially since there were many planets in his body, that was another matter. Absorbing it was like a huge amount of feeling, it was simply amazing. If he could stay here for a few years, it would not be a dream to break through several levels. After all, he could obtain nearly 100 million EXP each time, and it didn't take long for him to obtain so much EXP each time. It was very worthwhile. Elder Nyen is right. This training ground is really good. No wonder there are so many earthly lords and the Lord of Heaven here. This place is of great help to them. Yi Tianyun shook his head. There was a limit. If he was given only a month, it would be too short. Soon, he continued to approach the life core. Finally, he was only a few hundred meters away from the life core. At this time, the pressure was so great that he felt like he couldn't breathe. There are still more than 500 meters left, but the last 500 meters are the most difficult. It should be said that the most important thing is to be able to meditate and stabilize yourself. Yu Yanglong looked at his disciple, his eyes filled with anticipation. Only by being stable could it be considered a success. If he couldn't stabilize it, it could only be considered a failure. Of course, he could slowly adapt to it in the later stages, and it would still be considered a success. He still had a lot of time. However, the difficulty wasn't small. The last 500 meters was rather difficult. The gravity suddenly increased a lot, and the originally gentle life force suddenly became incomparably violent. Whether he could withstand it or not would depend on his own ability. Yes, that is indeed the most difficult. I have seen people rush to the end in one breath, but I have never seen anyone who could sit down for the first time. They all shook their heads. However, if Yi Tianyun failed, he definitely wouldn't feel it was a pity. He would only feel that it was natural. It was already quite amazing to be able to reach this level at such a young age. Many geniuses couldn't reach the end. They would only reach the end after a few more times and their cultivation increased by several levels. Failure here wasn't a disgrace. After all, this was training, not a competition. When Yi Tianyun stepped into the last 500 meters, he immediately felt a terrifying gravity pressing down on him. His knees buckled, and he almost knelt down. Veins popped up on his body. First, his meridians turned green, and then they started to turn red. His entire face turned red. The terrifying gravity made it hard for him to breathe, and his chest felt like it was going to explode. As expected, he has reached his limit. They saw that Yi Tianyun's knees were bent, which meant that he had reached his limit. He probably couldn't even take half a step forward. This was the terror of the last 500 meters. They thought back to the training from a long time ago, and they all thought that they could finish it. When they entered the 500 meters range, that was the real start. It's fine. He just needs to retreat a little and cultivate. According to the reward plan, he can stay in there for more than 2 years, which is enough for him to take his time. Nian Xiaoyu smiled and said, however, to be able to reach this level of ability is enough for him to be proud. All the elders nodded. If he passed in one go, it would really be strange. Yi Tianyun, who was below, bitterly persevered. He wanted to take another step forward, but he just couldn't take that step. He felt like he couldn't even lift his leg. This gravity is too terrifying. It has completely multiplied. Yi Tianyun looked up at the life core that was within his reach. He was less than 500 meters away. If he could touch it at a closer distance, the effect would definitely be better. But now that he has reached his limit, if he doesn't upgrade it, he will definitely fall back. It seems that I can only upgrade, Dragon God Bloodline. Ding, deducted 500 million EXP, successfully upgraded Dragon God Bloodline to 8th grade. The next level requires 5 billion crazy points. If he didn't upgrade, he definitely wouldn't be able to cultivate here. Sure enough, after the upgrade, the effect immediately improved a lot, so that he can easily stay here to cultivate, and the pressure is a lot lighter. Soon after, he straightened his legs and walked inside step by step. Even if he upgraded his Dragon God Bloodline, he still felt the pressure doubled, and he could barely walk inside. How is this possible? When the elders thought that there was nothing to see, they suddenly saw Yi Tianyun walking inside step by step. Shocking, terrifying, and unbelievable. Everyone's eyes appeared in front of them. It is really too unbelievable. Am I seeing a ghost? Yes, it is really a ghost. I also doubt it. Can he still walk? Chapter 963. Everyone looked at Yi Tianyun as if they had seen a ghost, but Yi Tianyun continued to walk forward and slowly approached the life core. The distance of 500 meters was getting heavier with each step, but it was still within his tolerance range. Finally, he moved forward bit by bit and successfully reached the life core. He was within reach. What a dense life force! Yi Tianyun closed his eyes and carefully felt the surging life force. It was much more effective than his longevity set. If he had any injuries, he could recover instantly. Even a broken arm could be regrown. As for the other internal injuries in his body, he could recover quickly. Many cultivators would more or less have some hidden ailments in their bodies. These were all buried during the cultivation process. Yi Tianyun did not have any internal injuries. His physique was already so strong, and he had the longevity set. It was impossible for him to have any internal injuries. Even if he did, he would recover immediately. When he reached out to touch the core, he immediately felt himself fusing with it. Surging life force surged into his body, and his experience increased explosively. 110 million experience points, 108 million experience points. The experience points hovered around 100 million, which was quite terrifying. The most important thing was that it could flow into the planet in his body, filling it with more life force. He reached out to the core and began to absorb the essence of the core, transferring it to the planet in his body. He wondered if he could absorb the core essence into his body. Immediately, he tried to transfer the life force into the planet bit by bit. When the elders saw that Yi Tianyun was able to cultivate steadily below, they had strange expressions on their faces. They did not know what to feel. It could even be described as terrifying. It was unprecedented for him to succeed in one go. This was the first time they had seen someone succeed in one go. They had never seen such a situation before. Of course, it was not impossible to succeed in one go. One could just find a powerful Lord of Heaven and walk straight to the core area. It might even be easier. However, the significance was different. Yi Tianyun's cultivation was only at the 3rd refinement Earth Lord level. He was much weaker than the Lord of Heaven. This was like a child who was able to carry a bucket of water. He would definitely feel that he was very strong, but if it was an adult trying it, it would be normal. In this time's Divine Realm Ascension War, we should be able to obtain a very good result. They didn't speak too confidently. There were countless powerhouses here, so everything was hard to say. Some invincible geniuses were plotted against and killed along the way, so they naturally did not have a place in the rankings. There were also existences stronger than Murong Xiao. Murong Xiao was very talented, but they did not dare to say that he was a heaven-defying existence. Because some cultivators were reincarnations of powerhouses, who could say for sure? After the elders saw the final result, they all went back to their own matters. He had seen everything here, and there was nothing else to see. The only thing Yi Tianyun could do now was to stay here and cultivate until the time was up. If he could reach a depth of 100,000 meters, he would be able to stay until the Divine Realm's Ascension battle. This kind of treatment even many Lord of Heaven were envious of. Even the elders could not stay for that long. They were afraid that the absorption would be too rapid, and they would absorb all the energy from the core. No matter what, this planet could only be considered a small planet. The condensed core could only be considered small, and it was impossible for it to produce energy endlessly. When Murong Xiao and the others saw Yi Tianyun's situation, there was only shock in their eyes. There was no envy or jealousy. This was because he had relied on true strength to reach the bottom and leave them far behind. There was no jealousy to speak of. If they were surpassed by a little bit, they might be a little unwilling. But when it surpassed a huge range, to the extent that they could not reach, they could only look up to it. Besides looking up to it, there was no other thought. Where did this kid come from? He is so much stronger than me. She clenched her fists, and her beautiful eyes flickered with unwillingness. She was different from other cultivators. She was still arrogant. She had always been regarded as a super genius, but she was surpassed by an unknown young man. How could she be willing to accept this? Originally, she felt that cultivating here was boring. Now that she saw that Yi Tianyun had surpassed her by so much, the motivation in her heart immediately surged, and she wanted to rush forward. Yi Tianyun could not be bothered with their thoughts. He focused on cultivating and absorbing the life energy. Gradually, the planet in his body grew bigger bit by bit, and it became luxuriant. Some spirit herbs began to grow. The spirit herbs that were growing were of a lower grade, but at least they were progressing in an excellent direction. As for the core and whatnot, he still could not condense it. He did not know if he could condense the core. After all, it was an absolutely rare thing. He did not think too much about it. Now, he was simply gaining experience and strengthening the planet's energy in his body. After an unknown period of time, the planet in Yi Tianyun's body suddenly emitted a ray of light. Following that, the planet let out a rumbling sound and began to grow bigger bit by bit. It's starting to improve. Yi Tianyun was elated. He knew that if he wanted the planet to grow bigger, he had to nourish it bit by bit. He needed the nourishment of astral power. It would take a relatively long time for the planet to grow bigger. As for how long it would take, it was temporarily unknown. Different cultivators' situations were different. And now, he was starting to grow bigger. The originally small planet began to grow bigger bit by bit. The speed was not fast. However, when it grew bigger, the land area immediately expanded. It could be said that expanding one circle was equivalent to adding another continent. After expanding a few circles, it finally stopped. The vegetation on it also increased by a level. The original limit of trees was only a few feet tall, but now it suddenly increased to more than 100 feet. Originally, the highest grade of spirit herbs was only grade 1 or 2. Now, it became grade 3 or 4. Now, the planet in his body had officially advanced to grade 2, entering a brand new realm. Immediately, he felt that his astral power capacity and explosive power had greatly increased. Is this the feeling of leveling up to a planet? It's almost the same effect as a breakthrough in cultivation. Yi Tianyun was very surprised. However, he knew that improving his cultivation was much easier than upgrading to a planet. It was much more difficult for a planet. It was not as simple as the usual nourishment. There seems to be something. If Yi Tianyun observed carefully, he realized that a small core had begun to condense in the planet in his body. Core. You're tuning in to the Blissful Bookshelf YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.